Cold fury consumed Warwick. He wanted to thrash any suitors who would dare to darken Ariana's door. But he had already maimed and wounded an entire cavalcade of them. There was nobody left for him to fight. Jake and Pete, who had caught up with him, suggested perhaps they should call it a night. The Crown Prince's head swam. He had extended a staggering amount of spiritual essence. "Yes," he said. "Please, take me home." Jake and Pete said in unison, "Yes, of course." They were good liars. Warwick said, "Don't tell Ariana what I've done." Then he collapsed. Sometime later, as Ariana was curled up with a book, she heard someone tapping on her window. She knew it was either a lonely ghost walking the earth by night or one of her closest friends. Only a handful of people could get through the protective barrier she had set up around Fallen Star Yard to protect her mother and the servants. She leaped out of her bed and opened the window. There stood Jake, who had raised his fist to resume tapping. Behind him stood Pete, who had a body draped over his shoulders in a fireman's carry. "Ariana, please help us," Jake whispered urgently. "You're our only hope." Ariana murmured, "Meet me at the back door. I don't want to wake everybody up." Swiftly and silently, she slipped through the corridors and out the back door. She gasped when she saw that the body on Pete's back was Warwick's. The Crown Prince was unconscious, and his clothes were soaked in blood. She grabbed his wrist and took his pulse. "Thank God he's not dead," she whispered. Jake muttered urgently, "He's gravely injured. He needs medical treatment. He was fighting because of you, but didn't want us to tell you why." "I need to get him into the house so I can start his treatment right away," Ariana said. Slowly and carefully, Jake removed Warwick's body from Pete's shoulders. Ariana knew how to do a fireman's carry too, so Jake handed Warwick's body over to her. "After you finish his treatment, please keep him hidden. He'll be in so much trouble when His Majesty hears about what he's done," Jake said. Ariana didn't want to delay his treatment for even a second, so she decided not to pressure Jake to tell her why Warwick had been fighting. Jake and Pete disappeared into the night. Ariana turned on her heel and headed into the house. Swiftly and silently, she slipped through the corridors and stepped into her bedroom. She locked the door and laid Warwick on her bed. There he was, all alone with her in her room. She studied the contours of his beautiful face. There was a nasty laceration on it, and she touched his cheekbone gently to make sure it wasn't broken. Then she deployed her supreme-level medicine refiner skills to heal his face wound. Green light flew from her fingertips. Next, she started unbuttoning Warwick's robe so she could examine his body for injuries. The skin on his chest glowed, and she stared at it fixedly. Then she thought, "I'm his doctor. I need to act like a professional." The hollow of his throat looked so vulnerable. "I inhabited his body when he saved my life in the tombs," she thought. "It shouldn't seem so magical and mysterious to me." As she undid another button on his robe, his eyes flew open. "You're here with me," he murmured. He clasped her hand and held it to his lips. His gallantry made her smile. "Yes, my prince," she whispered. "I'm here." Suddenly, Warwick coughed. Ariana pretended not to be alarmed. "You need to drink some water. she murmured. She put her arms around him and raised him into a sitting position so she could spoon water into his mouth. He studied the contours of her beautiful face, and his black eyes glittered with adoration. When he had sipped all the water he needed, she said, "Now, lie down so I can examine your torso for injuries." Ariana managed to keep calm as she undid Warwick's other buttons. Then she pulled back his robe and saw an ugly palm print on his chest. The ribs beneath it were broken. If his opponent's hand had struck him just a little bit higher, it would have slammed into his heart and killed him. Rage ignited in Ariana's soul. "Who did this to you?" she hissed. Warwick stared at her in silence. "Tell me who it was," she snarled. "I'll make them sorry they hurt you." He thought she was such a warrior. Then he said, "Don't worry, they're already sorry. I burned one side of their face and half of their torso. I vanquished them." Ariana exclaimed, "Good. Whoever it was deserved it." They locked eyes for a moment. Then she said, "Now lie still and let me treat your wounds." Once again, green light flew from her fingertips. Then she applied lotions, potions, and powders to hasten his healing process. When she had finished treating him, Ariana said gravely, "Your internal injuries are very serious. They'd have killed an ordinary person. Why were you fighting?" Warwick had no intention of telling her. He said haughtily, "That's for me to know and you to find out." Her snort of laughter surprised them both. "You silly goose," she guffawed. "That's what a 5-year-old says on the playground." The crown prince pretended to be insulted and faked a scowl. Then he struggled to sit up as though he were going to stride out of the room. He couldn't have done so at that moment because he was too weak. Ariana tapped his nose as she said playfully, "You're not going anywhere, mister." Then her tone grew serious. "You fought twice tonight," she said. "There are 2 layers of injuries on your body." Warwick gazed at her in silence. She continued sternly, "You were seriously injured in your first battle, but you went out and fought a second one. That was a very bad judgment on your part." He nodded because he knew she was right. He should have stayed in his cultivation room and recuperated from the wounds Madeline's grandfather had inflicted on him. But he had found out about the cavalcade of suitors wending its way to Ariana's home, and he had felt compelled to block the road they were traveling on and injure as many of them as possible. Ariana said angrily, "Jake should have stopped you." The crown prince nodded again. He was happy to have her direct her ire at his friend instead of at him. She sighed and said, "Of course, if you lost your temper, Jake was powerless to stop you." The crown prince nodded yet again. She was right about that, too. They locked eyes for another moment. Ariana suddenly thought, "My God, he's beautiful." Her anger evaporated. She said gently, "Warwick, please. You're the most powerful warrior of our generation, but don't ever engage in a second fight when your wounds from the first one are still festering." He thought, "I don't care if I got hurt. I fought for you. I'd do anything for you." Ariana said, "You must promise me you'll be more careful." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I promise you." Ariana felt her heart twist. "He's being so nice," she thought. Warwick looked so adorable. Ariana reached out and smoothed his hair, which had fallen into his eyes. Then she cleared her throat and tried to act more professionally. After all, she was a supreme-level medicine refiner. "You need to stay in bed for 3 days and refrain from exercising for a month," she said briskly. "Then you can start rehab workouts. I'll give you a list of food you shouldn't eat because they might irritate your injured organs," she added. It was his turn to snort with laughter. "What's so funny?" she asked quizzically. "I'm the crown prince of a powerful nation," he said. "I have employees who keep track of details like that." It was her turn to nod. She said, "Tomorrow, I'll slip away and give Toby a set of instructions for how to take care of you when it's safe to send you home." Warwick said, "My steward unexpectedly went to see his relatives in his hometown." She replied, "In that case, I'll write out a treatment regimen your other servants can follow. In the meantime, let me get you some warm pajamas. You'll need them because the early spring wind seeps through my windows." His black eyes glittered with a sudden fury. "Why do you have men's pajamas in your room?" he shouted. She said, "Keep your voice down. They're a present for my little brother Henry. I made them myself." Then Ariana opened a drawer and pulled out a ridiculous-looking pair of pajamas decorated with orange and black stripes. The pants had a fake tiger's tail sewn onto them. The top was a hoodie with fake tiger ears sewn onto it. "Henry loves tigers," she said. "We have a private joke that he was a tiger in his past life." The crown prince stared at her. "I made his pajamas because he'll probably be gone for a couple of years. By the time he gets back, he might be as tall as you are. He went away with Hunter James on a trip to see the wide world," she said. At that moment, Warwick was so weak that Ariana had to help him try on the pajamas. All the while, she kept talking about her brother. "Travel is so enriching," she said. "Henry must be having marvelous adventures and learning extraordinary things." The crown prince decided he had heard enough about Henry. He made a secret vow to burn the tiger-striped pajamas to ash as soon as his servants brought him his royal jammies. Ariana noticed Warwick's sullen expression. Once again, she smoothed his hair, which had fallen into his eyes. "Let's not quarrel," she said. "Henry never quarrels with me. He's such a good boy." The crown prince tried to control his temper. "I can't be jealous," he thought. "Henry's her brother, for God's sake. He's a child." But it was no use. Warwick wanted to pound his fist against the wall and throw things. But at that moment, he was so weak that all he could do was shout at Ariana. "Leave me alone!" he exclaimed. She recoiled as if she'd been slapped. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered. "Just go!" he snarled. Tears filled her eyes. She fled from the room as fast as her legs could carry her. The crown prince's closest friends sat in a secluded spot and congratulated them on the success of their scheme. They had no way of knowing that at that very moment, Warwick was fuming and Ariana was weeping. "Mission accomplished!" Jake crowed. "We got Warwick inside Ariana's house." Before the crown prince had collapsed, he had instructed his friends to take him home. They could have followed his orders and then summoned one of the excellent doctors who cared for the royal family. Instead, they had taken him to Fallen Star Yard and left him in Ariana's capable hands. If he questioned their judgment later, they would remind him she was a supreme-level medicine refiner. They would never reveal they had plotted and schemed to get Warwick and Ariana alone together after he had scared away her suitors. Pete acknowledged Jake's ebullient cheer with a quiet smile. Pete never said much, so Jake didn't realize his friend was pained by the thought of Warwick and Ariana spending the night together. In the silence of his heart, Pete was hopelessly, helplessly in love with Ariana. He had been for quite some time. He thought she was brainy, brave, and beautiful. He thought the sun rose in her eyes. His love for her was a secret he intended to take to his grave. Warwick was his dearest friend and his future king. Pete would never do anything to hurt him. Jake talked on and on about what a wonderful couple Warwick and Ariana were. "It's high time they got married," he said. "Maybe after tonight, they'll announce their engagement." Pete smiled again. His heart hurt, but he would never, ever tell Jake that. Meanwhile, at Fallen Star Yard, Warwick lay sulking in silence. He was wearing a pair of ridiculous-looking pajamas with a fake tiger's tail and fake tiger's ears sewn onto them. The jammies were a gift Ariana had made for her younger brother. Hearing her speak in glowing terms about Henry had goaded Warwick into a jealous rage. He knew his feelings were irrational, but he had yelled at beautiful, blameless Ariana anyway. If the Crown Prince had been his usual healthy self, he would have stalked angrily out of Ariana's room. That's what he usually did when he needed to blow off steam. Then a few moments later, he would have calmed down and stalked back in. He would have spent the rest of the night enjoying the pleasure of her company. They would have argued about which one of them should sleep in her bed and which one of them should sleep on a straw pallet on the floor. She would have fussed over him and checked to see how his wounds were healing. But instead, Warwick was alone. He wanted to call out Ariana's name. He didn't care if it woke up the rest of the household. He wanted her to be there by his side. But she had slipped a crushed-up sleeping pill into one of the medicines she had given him. She had wanted him to have a restful night. The sleeping pill was starting to take effect, so he didn't have the strength to shout. "Come back to me," he thought. "Come back now." But she didn't. The Crown Prince had just enough strength left to turn his face to the wall. So he did. And then he fell asleep. Ariana walked alone, weeping by the edge of the river. She had run outside in her nightgown. Her bare feet were cold, but she didn't notice. In due time, her tears ceased. Moonlight drifted down through the treetops, and a sense of calm crept into her soul. Warwick has gotten better at controlling his temper, she thought. But he was seriously injured tonight, and I think that made him revert to his old behavior pattern. Suddenly, she longed to be by his side, so she turned on her heel and headed for home. As she neared the house, she saw a carriage parked outside the front gate. "Good Lord," she thought, "who's here at this hour of the night?" She ran quickly to see who it was. She didn't want whoever it was to pound on the gate and raise a ruckus. Her visitor turned out to be King Marcus's chief steward, Joshua. He pretended not to be surprised she was wandering about outside in a nightgown. "Miss Ariana," he said with a bow, "His Majesty requests an immediate audience with you." She pretended not to be alarmed. "Of course, the king wants to know where Warwick is," she thought with dismay. Joshua gallantly offered her his cloak. They stepped into the carriage and sped away. The king started shouting as soon as Ariana stepped into his private study. Her heart sank. He had been so nice to her in recent weeks. On her birthday, he honored her with a surprise visit to her home. Now he was being so mean. "Where is my surly, stubborn son?" he screamed. Ariana arranged her features in a mask of innocent ignorance. "I don't know, Your Majesty," she lied blandly. The king roared. "His foolishness knows no bounds. Do you know what he did last night? Do you?" The king didn't give her time to reply. He yelled, "My son battled Madeline's grandfather, Stuart Monroe, who's one of the older generation's deadliest fighters. By all rights, Stuart should have killed him." Ariana gasped. "It's a miracle Warwick's alive," she thought. Marcus thundered, "Do you know why the Crown Prince challenged Madeline's grandfather? Do you?" Ariana was pretty sure she knew the answer to the king's angry question, but she managed to maintain her innocently ignorant expression. "No, Your Majesty." She blandly lied once again. "Then I'll tell you," the mighty monarch exclaimed. "Warwick proposed to Stuart and then challenged him to a fight. If Warwick won, Stuart would have to accept the proposal. If Warwick lost, Stuart was free to reject it," he added. Ariana decided to start speaking honestly to the king. "Please, tell me about the proposal, Your Majesty," she said. Marcus decided to stop shouting at her. "I made Stuart explain it to me," the king said. "He lost his fight with Warwick, so he was compelled to agree not to get involved in the quarrel between you and his granddaughter Madeline." The king gazed inquiringly at Ariana. "Do you understand what that means?" he asked. She replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. It means Madeline's family can't intervene in our quarrel. They can't hurt me no matter what I do to her." The king said, "That's correct. And if they renege on the agreement and try to punish you, Warwick will deal harshly with them." Ariana's heart twisted. "What a wonderful thing Warwick's done for me," she thought. Marcus started shouting again, and Ariana was startled by his suddenly shifting mood. He yelled, "Do you know what else my surly, stubborn son did last night? Do you?" He didn't give her time to answer. He said, "Despite his injuries, the Crown Prince attacked the suitors who were headed to your house to shower you with gifts. They all want to marry you because of your divine phoenix blood." Once again, she gasped. The king cried, "Do you know how much trouble he's caused me? Do you? He ripped a 10-yard-long gash in the road. The vegetable vendors are in an uproar because they can't get their produce to the city." Ariana started trembling. The king said, "Twice in a single night, my surly, stubborn son risked his life to protect you, Princess Ariana." Silence fell over the scene. Ariana thought of wounded Warwick lying alone in her bed. She thought of the ugly palm print on his chest. Stuart's mighty hand had come so close to striking the Crown Prince's heart. Warwick had come so close to dying. Why didn't he tell me he did all these things for me? She wondered. A sob escaped from her lips. The king gave Joshua a surreptitious glance. Joshua gave him a surreptitious nod. Ariana was an incredibly perceptive young woman, but she was not too upset to realize King Marcus had only been pretending to be angry. He wanted her to know how much Warwick loved her. Ariana sobbed again. Then she fled from the room as fast as her legs could carry her. When the echo from her footsteps had died out, a man stepped out from behind a secret door that opened into the study. "How did I do, Toby?" Marcus asked him. Warwick Stewart hadn't gone to see his relatives in his hometown. Ariana rushed out of the palace and headed home. Her bare feet were cold, but she didn't notice. Joshua's cloak streamed behind her. She knew there was something she needed to do. Warwick risked his life for me, she thought, and I didn't thank him. And on she ran, sobbing all the while. However sorry she might have felt, it wasn't Ariana's style to go rushing back to apologize to Prince Warwick. She stalled for as long as she could. "Chicken soup is good when you're not feeling well," she reasoned. "I'll make him some." After making the soup, she squeezed some fresh juice. Then, not being able to find any more reason to delay, but satisfied that those offerings would work as an apology, set it all on a tray and carried it into her room. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. "He's still mad at me," she thought. "Fingers crossed my peace offering works." She gently pushed the door open, padded into the room, and put the tray on the bedside table. At her arrival, the Crown Prince turned to face the wall. "So childish. It's hard to believe this is the same person who's capable of standing up to the Monroe family and all those others for me." Crouching beside him, she poked his back with her finger. "I know you're awake. Are you hungry? Would you like some soup?" The Crown Prince ignored her and went on sulking. Ariana sat down on the edge of the bed and tugged at his blanket. "Lying on your side isn't good for your wounds. You should lie on your back." Glancing over his shoulder, he shot her a dirty look. "Like you care," he thought. "Just leave me alone." Eventually, realizing that she wasn't going to give up, he turned and lay on his back. Ariana fetched some cushions so that he could sit up comfortably. "We made these. Aren't they adorable?" she said, waggling the rabbit ears attached to the cushions. "They go with your robe." "They're for children," he replied with a scowl. "Didn't stop you from wearing the robe," she thought. "Still, at least you're talking to me now. This is my chance." "About last night," she started. "I don't want to talk about it," he snapped. Taken aback, she opened her mouth to try again. "Not a word," he said. "I can't believe I let myself get carried away," he thought. "Destroying all those gifts felt good at the time, but now everybody will know how I feel about her. It's so embarrassing. I wish you would just leave me alone so I don't have to talk about it. If only he would let me speak, Ariana thought. I could tell him I know what he did for me and how grateful I am. They sat in silence. Maybe I could return the favor in the future, Ariana mused. That shouldn't be too difficult. My beautiful master could help, and his other followers. Have a drink, she said, changing the subject. I squeezed the juice myself. How do I know you didn't put sleeping powder in it again? He said huffily. Ariana took a sip. See? It's safe. He snatched the glass from her and drained it thirstily. Okay, now, how about some chicken soup? It's good for you. I made it myself, she suggested. Really? He asked. What's the problem now? She wondered. Ariana picked up the bowl of soup, but Warwick turned his head away. Fine, you spoiled young prince, she said as she filled the spoon and held it up to his mouth. Come on, Your Royal Highness, eat up. How do I know you didn't put any sleeping powder in this instead of in the juice? He asked. Ariana took a deep breath. What do you think I want to do to you? Why would I drag you all the time? She let out the breath in a long sigh to calm down and fixed a smile on her face. I'll have the first spoonful. Having tasted it, she refilled the spoon. Will you have some now, Your Royal Highness? Why the fake smile? He asked. Ariana rolled her eyes. Nothing makes you happy, does it? Are you going to eat this or not? If not, I'll take it back to the kitchen. She rose to her feet. Hey, did I say I wasn't going to eat it? Oh my goodness, she thought. If he didn't look so adorable, he'd be wearing this soup as well as that bunny robe. But I'm not sure I have enough strength in my arms, he added. Do you want me to feed you? She asked. If you want. The crown prince hid his delight behind a grumpy response. Ariana sat back down on the bed and fed him until the bowl was empty. Having loaded the tray to take everything back to the kitchen, she was stopped by another request as she reached the door. Please, could I have a cup of tea? He asked. So, his manners have returned, she thought. Sure. Returning with the tea, she handed it to him. Too hot, he exclaimed. I tested it. It's not that hot, she replied patiently. The crown prince looked pleadingly at her. All right, I'll blow on it to cool it down, she said. While she was doing so, he allowed himself a brief smile. Was that a smile? She wondered. No, I'm probably seeing things. Miss Ariana! Prince Warwick glared at the door from which the call had come. Jane, Ariana's friend and maid, may not have reached the spiritual lord stage, but she could certainly sense the crown prince's mood from the other side of the door. Taking that as her cue, she stopped calling. Hearing her name, Ariana approached the door. Don't go, Warwick commanded. She looked back at the prince. Seeing him imploring her like an abandoned puppy set off butterflies in her stomach. I'm going to let Jane know how you're doing. My family doesn't know you're here yet, and I don't want to scare them, she told him. Do I look that frightening? He asked. Ha! You may not look scary, but your status is intimidating. I'll be right back. There are some books on the desk if you're bored. Feel free to have a look." Jane had heard every word of their conversation. When Ariana joined her, she could barely speak. "His Royal Highness." She gave up trying to find the words and simply pointed toward the room. Ariana nodded. "Yes, he's inside." "Are you okay?" Jane was almost in tears. "Did he force his way in there? If he laid a finger on you—" Ariana stopped her as she rushed toward the door. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she said. The two turned to see their friend Erin arrive in the courtyard and watched as she caught her breath. "Everybody knows about your Divine Phoenix blood now," Erin told them. "The talk is that the major families are all vying for you to marry their sons. Except for the Monroe family, of course. They'll probably be busy plotting against you again. But we won't let that happen." She raised her fist. "We'll protect you." Ariana's mother, Britta, Jane, and Rita, who worked alongside Jane, all stood protectively around her. Ariana was touched by their concern, but was further interrupted before she could attempt to set the record straight. "Miss Grace, I've just heard some shocking news." Jarvis, her steward, ran to join the group. "Something terrible's happened at the Monroe place last night. Nearly half the manor has gone. They're saying it was struck by lightning during the night." Ariana smacked her forehead. "Oh, if you only knew." "And that's not all. There's a whole cavalcade of carriages on the road to the city. Judging by the emblems, they're from most of the main families in the kingdom." Erin grabbed her sword. "They're here to propose to Ariana. Show me the way, and I'll see them off," she yelled. "Hold on, let me finish. They're already scattered all over the ground and abandoned as if they've been robbed." Ariana rubbed her temples. "Oh no," she thought. "I know what happened there." Erin was taken aback at the news from outside the city. "Robbed? All of them?" she questioned. "Yes, I've just been over there to see it for myself," Jarvis confirmed. "There's a massive rift opened up in the ground out there, too. Nothing can get in or out of the city." "How did that happen?" Erin asked. "I heard it was done with a sword." "Wow! Who could have done that? I would love to learn from them." Inside the bedroom, but listening to everything that was said in the courtyard, Prince Warwick felt both abashed and proud. He even allowed himself a small congratulatory smile. The events of the previous night were still being discussed in the courtyard of Fallen Star Yard when Jake and Pete arrived, deep in conversation. "Man, I'm tired after last night." Jake rubbed his shoulders and arched his back. "That strike, I'm telling you." "Jake!" Erin's eyes lit up, and she ran to tug him toward the group. "You know who did it, don't you? You know who got rid of the proposal gifts." The Crown Prince, listening from inside the bedroom, grew nervous and cleared his throat noisily as a warning to his friend. Jake's stomach lurched at the recollection of his strict instructions not to say anything. He was forced to think quickly. "Surely you don't need me to tell you. It's so easy to guess," he replied. "Was it Lachlan, the master of Wooting Temple?" Erin asked. "I think he has better things to do than to meddle in this, don't you?" Jake scoffed. The Crown Prince cleared his throat again. "Oh, I'm an idiot," Jake thought. Too quick to correct her. I should have just gone along with that. Now what can I say? "You've met him before. You'll be able to guess without any more clues from me. I'm starving," he said, hastily changing the subject. "Come on, Pete, let's get some breakfast." Pete chanced a glance toward Ariana, but she was too wrapped up in her own thoughts about the Crown Prince. "Not so fast, you two. What do you mean?" Aaron blocked their way. "Who was it?" "Don't worry about it," Ariana soothed. "Nobody will try to steal my divine phoenix blood again." "Really?" Jane was pleasantly surprised. "Are you sure? I mean, look what you went through before with your true phoenix blood. How can you be sure your divine phoenix blood is safe?" "Madeline has been sent to the Peace Grassland," Jake declared, desperate to change the subject. "What do you think of that?" Taking Pete with him, he dodged around Aaron and made a swift exit. Jane was amazed. "Been banished, has she? What with that and the destruction of all those bribes from the families, you might well enjoy some peace again, Ariana. But who is your secret savior?" "Yeah," said Aaron, "and how will you ever thank them?" Behind the closed bedroom door, Prince Warwick blushed. Ariana looked at her friends in resignation. "Don't you have better things to do?" she asked. Undeterred, Aaron continued. "Ooh, could it be Harry Ayers, do you think? It sounds like something he would do." Hidden from sight, Warwick's face fell. Outside the gate, Jake and Pete overheard the conversation inside Fallen Star Yard and felt frustrated. After all their efforts the previous night, that stupid Harry was going to take the credit for saving Ariana from the unwanted attention of all those families. Ariana glanced toward her room and smiled. "You're right. It does sound like something he would do." Behind the closed door, Prince Warwick had to bite his tongue. "Surely you can't believe that," he fumed. Jane and Aaron joined in the praise for the son of the Dark Court. "I wouldn't mind having him look after me like that. He's so good-looking, and so powerful and talented." Ariana couldn't stand it anymore. "It may not have been him. What about Prince Warwick?" "You don't seriously think His Royal Highness would do something like that?" Aaron scoffed. "If that's the case, I'll eat my hat." Ariana took a sharp intake of breath. Jane, being closer, quickly put her hand over Aaron's mouth. "Shh." Wrestling free, Aaron was indignant. "What's the matter? What did I say? We all know what he's like. Arrogant and unapproachable. Yes, he might like Ariana, but he's got a funny way of showing it, always ordering her around." "Stop it!" Ariana couldn't let her go on. Jane whispered into her ear and pointed at Ariana's room. Aaron's eyes widened in fear, and she stared at Ariana, who simply nodded. "Well, I never. What is he doing here so early in the morning?" she wondered. Worried about the consequences of being overheard, she thought on her feet. "On second thought, it can't possibly have been Harry who made that strike. I'll go and check out the damage for myself. Bye." In her hurry to leave, she ran straight into Jake outside the gate, who mouthed, "It was Prince Warwick." Aaron fainted in his arms. In the courtyard, Ariana had hastily changed the subject and was instructing those who remained to go about their day as usual for the next few days, while the Crown Prince was staying with her. Careful to ensure she wasn't overheard, she also confirmed, to their delight, that it was indeed Prince Warwick whom they had been talking about. The temperature in her room, when she went back in, had dropped with the mood of its occupant, who was sitting up in bed and sulking. Ariana felt a little guilty for having brought up the subject of the Prince of the Dark Court. Ahem. She coughed. Warwick didn't acknowledge her presence. She walked up to the bed, but he refused to look at her. She plumped the cushion behind his back. Even that seemed as cold and brittle as the tension in the room. Maybe I went a bit too far, she thought. I've upset him this time. She felt his forehead and feigned surprise. You're so cold. Are you sick? She asked. The Crown Prince wouldn't answer. Prince Warwick? No response. Warwick? Still nothing. Oh, Your Royal Highness, she cooed. Your Royal Highness, I know you can hear me, Ariana said softly to Prince Warwick. She must know that I can't resist when she speaks in that soothing voice. The Crown Prince realized he couldn't stay angry anymore. Sensing the change in his mood, Ariana knew she had done the right thing. I don't think it was Harry who did all that last night, she said, sitting on the bed. He's not nearly powerful enough to create such a wide split in the road. She's not wrong there, he thought. And I heard that half of the Monroe family's house had been blasted away. Whoever it was, I'm so grateful. The Crown Prince coyly buried his face in the blanket. I don't feel sorry for them, Ariana continued. Madeline destroyed my true phoenix blood all those years ago. I can't forgive her for that. But I wonder why whoever it was taken it upon himself to take revenge on my behalf. She continued, watching for his reaction. I've usually had to do things for myself. Still nothing, she thought. What's it going to take to get him to talk to me and admit what he did? She rested her chin on her hands and sighed. I want to meet my knight in shining armor. I'm sure he must be very handsome. The Crown Prince slowly sat up straight and looked directly into her eyes. Do you want to meet that person? Ariana's eyes twinkled. Yes, I do. He helped me get rid of Madeline and all those tiresome sycophants. I want to let him know how grateful I am. He didn't do it for you, Warwick said. Why did he do it then? She asked. He didn't have anything better to do. How do you know? The Crown Prince opened his mouth to answer, then quickly closed it. Clever, and I nearly fell for it, he thought. But if she doesn't know who it was, he realized, then she's going all gooey over just anybody. Ariana felt the temperature drop again. I thought we had gotten past this. What's the matter with him now? She wondered. What did I do? She asked. You're so fickle, he told her. She was dumbfounded. I thought you were different, he added. Stung by the criticism, Ariana stood up and turned on her heel to head for the door. Feeling guilty for what he had said, Prince Warwick hauled himself out of bed and grabbed Ariana's arm to stop her from leaving. "Let go of me," she snapped. "No." "Let go." "Not until you calm down." "You told me off." Tears welled in her eyes. "This is horrible. I was only teasing, but now I've upset him and made him angry with me again. Maybe I should have just told him that I know he was the one who did all those things for me. And now he's going to see me crying, which is just the worst." She struggled to get free, but he tightened his grip, determined that she wouldn't leave. "I was jealous," he thought. "I can't tell her that, but what can I do to make her stay?" With his free hand, he clutched his chest. He turned pale and sweat rolled down his face. Ariana instantly softened. "Didn't I tell you to stay in bed for the next 3 days? Come on, let's get you back there." Having made sure he was comfortable, she tried to leave, but he grabbed hold of her sleeve and looked at her imploringly. "Not the puppy dog eyes again," she thought. "Who would have thought you were such a fearsome fighter?" She feigned a stern look as she tugged to free her sleeve from his grip. "Don't go. Not on my first night in a strange house," the Crown Prince pleaded. "Are you joking?" Ariana asked. "I'm worried about how long my father will stay angry at me." Seeing no change in her resolve, the Crown Prince added, "And my grandmother will be desperately worried." Ariana was speechless. She recalled what King Marcus had told her about Warwick challenging Stuart Monroe, who was several levels more capable than he was. And the Queen Dowager doted on her grandson. She would be devastated if she knew what he had been through. "He did risk a lot for me," she marveled. "If only I could get him to admit it to me, we could move on. But then what? What if he asked me to make our engagement official? I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Why can't we just stay as we are? Growing up is too hard." Coming out of her contemplations, she realized that Warwick was gazing at her, and she blushed. Recovering her composure, she told him, "I've calmed down now. Have you?" "What are those?" he suddenly asked. "What?" Ariana looked down at her feet. She was wearing her fluffy slippers. "What's the matter with them?" she said indignantly. "This is my house, and I like to be comfortable. Don't you? I made a pair for Henry, too. They match that rather lovely robe you're wearing." Ariana wanted to lighten up the environment as Prince Warwick was upset. "Henry's robe suits you so well. Perhaps I could ask Rita to make you a pair of matching slippers too," she said. Ariana's light-hearted teasing did little to cheer Prince Warwick. "No? 2 pairs then?" Still not a hint of a smile from the Crown Prince. "What if I made them myself?" "Fine." He reluctantly broke his silence. "Make them here while I watch, though. Otherwise, how will I know you made them yourself?" Ariana smiled and headed for the door to go in search of what she needed. "No bunny ears!" he called after her, but she had already closed the door. "He wants you to make what?" Jane was incredulous when Ariana told her what she needed. "Yes, I know. Odd, isn't it? And he knows my sewing isn't up to much." But if that's what it takes to get him to stay calm, then so be it. Jane didn't dare look at the person on the bed when she came in with the basket of materials. After handing it over to Ariana, she rushed back to the door but chanced a glance before leaving. Is he wearing a robe with bunny ears? I've seen it all now. She closed the door behind her and found Rita, Britta, and the others in the household all crowding around, eager to know what was going on. Well, she whispered, His Royal Highness certainly doesn't look his usual fearsome self. Really? Rita asked. He's wearing Henry's bunny robe. She almost squeaked the last two words. Honestly, she continued, seeing the astonished look on Rita's face. He looks almost adorable. Jane covered her mouth and shook her head. Could it be that Ariana has finally tamed him? Inside the room, Ariana fixed Warwick with a serious look. I need to warn you, my sewing is, at best, mediocre. I know. I saw those 2 ducks you tried to embroider, remember? He replied. So why do you want me to sew these for you? Rita's the expert. Ah, yes, but she doesn't have such nice-looking hands. Do you pick the eggs you eat by how pretty the hens look? She asked sarcastically. The Crown Prince almost choked. Ariana was delighted to see him blush, but was determined to keep that to herself, focusing instead on making the slippers. There you go, she said, presenting the finished pair. Nice and fluffy. They'll keep you warm while you recuperate. And look, she made them dance. They've got bunny ears, too. Oh, how nice, he replied. Shall I put them on for you? Warwick was saved from the trouble of finding something else to say by the sound of approaching footsteps. As the footsteps drew closer, there was the sound of excited greetings among the household for a voice Ariana had long missed. Henry, he's back, she exclaimed. Tossing the slippers to one side, Ariana rushed to the courtyard to greet her younger brother. Come here, you! I thought you were never coming back. She hugged him tightly, and a little too long for the 17-year-old liking, before stepping back to study him. You're so tall now. Can it only have been 6 months since you left? Maybe it's because I got so used to seeing you every day. You'll always be my cute little brother, though, she added as she gave his cheek a playful squeeze. Ouch! Get off! He snapped. Getting over her initial thrill at his safe return, Ariana took stock of her brother's manifestation level. A level 7 spiritual lord? That's great progress, she told him. Hunter says it's all thanks to the foundation you built for me, he replied. Once I started cultivating, I made such fast progress that I won't even need to take the exam to enter Sphinx Academy. I can join the War Academy right away. Where is Hunter? She asked. He detected some unusual activity in the Blue Sky Kingdom, so he's gone to see King Marcus about it. We weren't due to come back so soon, but he told me to take the opportunity to come home for a bit. Unusual activity in the Blue Sky Kingdom? Ariana mused. That doesn't sound good. But we've got General Grace guarding the Peace Grassland. I'm sure he has everything under control. She soon put such worries aside and returned to the excitement of the return of her brother. I have something for you. Open your mouth. Henry obediently did as he was told. What is it? It tastes funny. Smells like the inside of a toilet, too. He thought. But she thinks this is something great, so I'd better not upset her. It's good for you. There's a whole bottle of it. Drink some more when you get to level 9, and it'll help you get to the spiritual king stage without getting stuck, she told him. That sounds like the spirit wine that Sphinx Academy used to have. Hunter told me about it, he replied. Exactly. That's what this is. Henry's eyes widened. Thanks. I'll keep you safe. I promise. And when I become a super talented cultivator, I'll repay the favor and protect you from that big bad wolf of a crown prince. Shh. Jane, Rita, and Jarvis joined in the effort to prevent Henry from saying anything more, knowing that the very same crown prince was just on the other side of the bedroom door. But Henry started to protest. Shh! Everyone said again. Henry looked perplexed by the warning looks of his family and household. That big bad wolf is in my room, Ariana whispered. Don't try to scare me like that. You and your tricks, Henry scoffed. Honestly, I'm telling the truth, she insisted. Her brother laughed as he walked toward the door. I know what this is. You're hiding something from me in there, aren't you? What is it? Will I like it? He opened the door and looked inside. Smiling back at him from the bed was Prince Warwick. Their eyes met. Ah! Henry turned and sped out of Fallen Star Yard, only stopping when he was clear of the gate. He wiped off the sweat on his forehead. Ariana caught up with him as he bent over, wiping sweat from his forehead. She put on a consoling hand on the small of his back. Henry straightened up and took her by the shoulders. Why is that fiend in the house? Why is he in your room? What's going on? What has he done to you? Come with me, he went on, taking her by the hand and tugging her away down the street. I'll take you to Hunter's house. We'll be safe there. We can talk about this. When he was finally content that they were far enough away from any threat the Crown Prince might pose, Henry looked his sister in the eye. What's going on, sis? It's a long story, she replied. Where do I start? She wondered. Back with Madeline stealing my true phoenix blood? I'm worried to death here, Henry urged. So cut to the chase. What's your relationship with that man? Relationship? She mused. Now, that's a tricky one. And there's always a chance he could still hear us if he wanted. He certainly has the ability. What do I say? Well, I think we're friends, she admitted. A friend who you let sleep in your bed? Henry asked. Ariana wanted to explain, but Henry cut her off. I remember once when we were little, I came in from playing outside and sat on your bed. You kicked me off, telling me not to even touch your bed before getting changed. I'm sure he got changed first too, she said. That's besides the point. You never even let me sit on your bed, but he's lying in it. Well, and he's wearing my bunny robe. But are you in love with him? No. Henry studied her expression. Are you sure? Yes. I'm not sure I believe you. In Ariana's room, Warwick rested his chin on his hand, lost in thought. The Crown Prince kept replaying in his head what Henry had said. That's your bed. I can't even sit on it, but he's lying there. Warwick had been jealous of Henry when he had first returned and stolen all of Ariana's attention, but found himself smiling as he considered the boy's words. Whenever she was involved, the prince became soft and sappy. However, he always turned back into a wise and sensible man again when he had to deal with other people. He wondered what he should do with his future brother-in-law, since he had just called him a monster. He felt the best course of action would be to mentor Henry, so the boy would change his opinion of him. Once he had formed the plan, his thoughts were much clearer, and he was instantly relieved. Henry and Ariana returned shortly after that. They had no idea what the clever crown prince was going to do. Henry was almost too scared to enter the house. He only calmed down when his sister promised him repeatedly that Warwick was quite harmless because of his injuries. When they arrived back at the house, he rushed through the door and ran as fast as he could to his room to avoid interacting with the prince. After dinner, Warwick was reading a book while Ariana foraged for some herbs. She was working as hard as she could to produce a remedy to help the prince's recovery. She had been treating him with the green light, but it had only had a minimal effect, so she decided to make a semi-divine enhancement pill. She had been stuck at the supreme level for a while and wasn't advanced enough to improve the medication, though. If only I could succeed in making an improved pill, I would be able to heal Prince Warwick a lot faster. At least I can find all I need at his residence, she thought. The pill required a lot of precious ingredients, which the Crown Prince's servants grew at his home, so she found everything she needed without difficulty. When she entered her room, Warwick put down the book he was reading and asked in a seemingly casual tone, "Is your brother back?" She nodded and said, "Yes, Henry's amazing. I forbade him from cultivating until he achieved the upgraded spirit body. He's been making fast progress since then and is already a level 7 spiritual lord." The prince tilted his head and looked at her with curious eyes. She added, "Henry is the most handsome boy in my neighborhood." Suddenly, the crown prince wasn't in the mood to chat anymore. He grunted, "Go back to refining your pill." She didn't understand the sudden shift in his attitude. "Are you sure you're going to be okay? I won't be available for 2 days," she reminded him. The crown prince replied with a simple nod. Once Ariana entered the refinement room, the crown prince glanced at Henry, who was outside the door and kept stealing peeks at Warwick from a few steps away. "Come over here," he commanded coolly. The prince's indifferent tone sounded casual, but no one could challenge the authority it carried. Henry was already scared of the prince, and the last thing he wanted was to go anywhere near him. He turned to run, but suddenly felt an invisible force stopping him. It was as though he was frozen and couldn't even move a finger. He wanted to cry. "My sister lied. The fiend is anything but harmless," he thought. He had no choice but to enter the room. He didn't know what the prince was going to do to him, but he thought Ariana would take revenge for him should something happen. Even so, he was still absolutely terrified. He walked over to the prince with his head down. "Let me see your hands," Warwick demanded. Henry let out a whimper as he extended his trembling hands. He thought the prince was cruel enough to cut them off, but instead, Warwick handed him a stack of exam papers. He told Henry that he wanted to review his progress. Feeling relieved, Henry let out a chuckle. He had followed Hunter James for the past 6 months and learned many things from the brilliant man, as well as making rapid progress with his cultivation. He wasn't nervous about the test at all. However, Henry was dumbfounded when he read the first question. It felt like he had fallen down the rabbit hole. The written portion of the test was over quickly. When Warwick began the second part of his examination, the boy quickly realized that whenever he looked back on that day, he would rejoice at the memory. He considered the prince to be a god and was excited by his very existence. That man can comprehend everything almost instantly and share his understanding with others, he thought. As Warwick tested him, Henry was able to grasp ideas and principles he hadn't been able to understand before, regardless of his master's teachings. All the prince did was point out Henry's swordplay shortcomings, and when the boy picked up his sword again, his moves were instantly improved. Additionally, Warwick drew a dot in the middle of a piece of paper, which contained secret knowledge. Henry was able to comprehend it quickly, and he rose to the next level within seconds. Henry was amazed, and his eyes sparkled. Is this what it's like to be a genius? He wondered. He admired Warwick for his intelligence, knowledge, and skills. He had appreciated Hunter for his wisdom and prudence, but all that paled in comparison with Warwick. After giving it some thought, Henry decided he would test the prince's knowledge. As his sister was holed up in the refinement room, he searched for books all over the city, determined to find something that Warwick didn't understand. However, after he asked all of his friends and collected all the information he could find, and tested the prince with them, he discovered that Warwick was able to explain anything on any random page he chose. Plus, his explanation was usually more comprehensive than what had been written in the books. Henry felt uneasy about having a brother-in-law like Warwick because he was cleverer and more capable than any other person he had ever known. Warwick knew Henry was challenging him, and he allowed it. It was all part of his plan. Once Henry agreed to continue being tested, the Crown Prince quickly finished a dozen abstract paintings. Some contained a word, and others only a single drop of ink on them. He seemingly drew them on a whim, but Henry held the scrolls as if they were the most precious thing in the world. Although the boy didn't realize it, they were quite valuable. Hunter and other officials have often requested them. Henry dried the paintings in the sun, and then he began studying them. As he gazed at them, he felt a sudden compulsion to cultivate. At that point, Ariana had produced the pill, but it was only partially successful. Semi-divine enhancement pills weren't that easy to make. She rubbed her temples, put the pill in a box, and came out of the room. She was surprised to find Henry cultivating, and her eyes lit up. It had only been 2 days since she had last seen him, but she could tell that he felt different. The impulsive and arrogant feelings brought on by his rapid progress were gone. He was working very hard now. She also knew that the rate of progress wasn't the most important thing for a genius, and understood that it was crucial to stay humble and modest. Arrogance was considered the enemy, but due to his achievements, Henry had initially developed a sense of superiority. She was happy to see he had transformed, and that trait had vanished. Henry seemed to have been tempered. He looked like a modest, self-disciplined boy, and Ariana was proud. Just then, he finished circulating the energy around his body. He opened his eyes and spotted his sister. He rose to his feet, but didn't rush to hug her like he used to, because the prince had warned him that only small children behave in that manner. She had her hands extended, but quickly dropped them and became a little embarrassed. Although she was happy to see that Henry was maturing, she missed her sweet, snuggly brother. Before she could say anything, he beamed as he asked, "Do you see anything different about me?" She examined him, and her eyes widened. "You're a level higher. You're a level 8 spiritual lord now," she said in excitement. He was shocked by how quickly he had progressed. "I thought you wouldn't be able to make any breakthroughs for the time being because of your rapid progress. What happened?" she asked. He laughed and replied, "Oh, you have no idea. His Royal Highness is amazing. He only gave me a few pointers, and I made a breakthrough." She narrowed her eyes at him and thought, "You were the one who called him a friend not that long ago, and now here you are singing his praises." She sighed at his prior foolishness and looked lovingly at him. Henry took out a dagger and showed it to her. "This is Wolf Moon. It's a level 3 divine weapon, and it can be upgraded," he explained as his eyes shone brightly. She was surprised to hear that it was a level 3 divine weapon. Weapons had different categories. Some could be upgraded, but most couldn't. It was extremely rare to find ones that could be upgraded because there weren't that many available. Most cultivators used iron weapons. Sacred weapons were of a higher grade, and above that were divine weapons. The Fallen Star sword had only been made of iron when it was created. It had become a sacred weapon after Ariana had added inscriptions and formations to it. Then she found an opportunity in the tomb to turn the sword into a divine weapon. Most weapons would maintain their original state. If someone wanted to increase their weapon's offensive and defensive properties, the most they could do would be to add inscriptions and formations. Upgrading wasn't usually an option. "Where did you get this?" she asked. She was pleasantly surprised because it was very hard to find such an impressive weapon. Henry was ecstatic. "His Royal Highness says that with my concealment skills, this dagger is perfect for assassination," he boasted. He suddenly rushed past Ariana and stopped behind her. She realized his speed was incredible, but she began to have a bad feeling. "I assume the prince helped you increase your speed too," she commented. The simple and honest boy spilled the beans. He began, "The dagger is from Prince Warwick, and so is this move. He's just amazing, isn't he? In the past 2 days—" Hold on," she interrupted as she raised her hand to cut him off. "Haven't you been calling him a friend all this time? Why are you suddenly praising him?" she asked suspiciously. He shrugged and said shyly, "I was too childish before." She squinted her eyes and sucked her teeth. "I feel like I haven't seen you in years. How could your rapid progress and your change of heart toward the prince all happen in just 2 days?" she questioned. Henry smiled awkwardly. "Well, I think he's a pretty decent brother-in-law," he exclaimed. Warwick had told Henry that once he finished comprehending the 12 paintings, there was another roomful of paintings at his residence the boy needed to dissect. Henry couldn't wait to see them. Meanwhile, Ariana was speechless. She thought back to how her brother had claimed that he was going to protect her from Warwick. and she suddenly realized the prince was up to something.
"Henry, why do you think Prince Warwick is mentoring you?"
she asked, but he didn't respond. She spun around to find him cultivating. She was puzzled as she continued to stare at the paintings. She scowled and shook her head. From the other room, the prince was listening to their conversation. He smiled in satisfaction after hearing their exchange. When he heard footsteps approaching, he jumped into bed and buried his head under the blanket. "Will my hair get messy?" he wondered. He immediately sat up, smoothed down his hair, and grabbed a book from the bedside table. He turned a page before Ariana came in after a knock. She studied Warwick in amazement.
How could he achieve all that in 2 days? How did he completely change Henry's attitude?
She wondered. The Crown Prince pretended he was too absorbed in the book to notice her. Realizing she was studying him, he put a hand on his chest and coughed weakly. She immediately went over and sat down by his side. No matter what he did, she felt that his health and recovery were her top priorities. She handed him the semi-finished pill.
"I made this semi-divine enhancement pill. Don't stare at it. It's my first time making one, so I've made some errors. It's only semi-finished, but it's better than nothing. It'll help your injury to recover about 25%. Will you take it?"
she asked. He stared at her in silence, which made her cringe. She thought he didn't want to take it, and she became nervous.
"Forget it,"
she said. She was embarrassed that she hadn't been able to finish the pill. She took it back and turned to leave, but he grabbed her hand. Before she knew it, he had yanked her and she fell into his arms. He was severely injured and couldn't withstand her weight, so she blushed and tried to stand up. However, he was holding her by her shoulder, and she couldn't break free. Surprised, she turned her head and stared at him.
"How's your chest? Did I hurt you?"
she asked. She had examined him, and the injury was very severe, but he didn't care at that moment. He just wanted to kiss her and tell everybody how amazing his girl was. She's so young, but she's already making semi-divine enhancement pills. She's the smartest girl in the world, he thought.
"Are you sure you're okay?"
she asked as she untied his robe to examine his injuries. His fair skin was exposed, and she saw that the handprint was still on his chest, but the area around it was less swollen than before. She touched the wound and he sucked in his breath. She was perplexed and asked,
"Does it hurt a lot?"
When Warwick didn't immediately respond, Ariana asked again,
"Does your wound hurt?"
The Crown Prince waved his hand and replied, "It's not that." She frowned.
"What is it then?"
she asked. He looked away from her intense stare because he couldn't answer her question. He wanted to tell her how he felt, but couldn't summon up the courage to say it. Getting no response from him, she added,
"Are you going to take this pill? It only has a quarter of the efficacy of a completed divine enhancement pill. But don't worry, I've gained some experience, so next time I'll probably be able to make a proper one. I wish I had some immortal spirit fruit here. I don't need much. 1 drop of the juice and this pill would be much more effective."
The Crown Prince glared at her, and she immediately fell silent as she remembered what she had done with the immortal spirit fruit. "Luckily," the Crown Prince started to say, but he didn't finish his sentence. She looked at him curiously and asked,
"Luckily what?"
The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't say them. He swallowed the rest of the sentence along with the pill. After he gulped it down, Ariana stood up and guarded Warwick while he absorbed the pill. She knew she had to find a way to find some immortal spirit fruit. She had obtained some information on the fruit from a blue sky spy, but hadn't had time to follow the lead once the fighting had started. She knew B couldn't wait much longer, so she didn't have much time left to find the fruit. She had asked the military intelligence to investigate, but they hadn't gotten back to her. It was the middle of the night when Warwick opened his eyes again. They looked clear and bright. Ariana was sitting next to the bed and quickly rose to her feet.
"How do you feel? Let me see your injury,"
she said. She put a hand on his chest to feel his heartbeat. The heat of his skin seemed to run up her arm. She forced herself to calm down.
"You're a doctor. Control yourself," she thought.
It took her a while to finish examining Warwick. She looked up at him in excitement.
"It worked. Although it didn't have the full effect, it worked. You're already recovered a quarter of your strength, and the pill helped you with another quarter. Right now, you're halfway to a full recovery. Listen to your body and pay attention to how you feel,"
she explained. Warwick's eyes dimmed. Why is she so excited about my recovery? Does she want to get rid of me? He wondered. He was upset by the thought. She had no idea that the Crown Prince's imagination was running wild, and she asked in bewilderment,
"What's wrong? Do you feel well?"
He looked angry and started to sulk. She patted him on the shoulder to comfort him.
"Don't worry about it. There's no need to rush. We have all the time in the world," she said.
All the time in the world? Does that mean she doesn't mind having me around? He wondered. He brightened up, but he covered it up well. He was about to say something when he heard hurried footsteps outside. Warwick and Ariana looked at each other, wondering who the footsteps belonged to. Whoever it was, they were heading their way.
"I'll have a look,"
Ariana said. The prince nodded. She went and opened the door. Joshua was standing there, about to knock. She recalled the way he had behaved just a few days prior. He had seemed quite cheerful at the time, but his expression was rather gloomy when she found him at the door.
"Has something happened?"
she asked. She had a bad feeling in the pit of her stomach. Joshua nodded and asked, "Is His Royal Highness here?" She nodded and moved aside so he could enter. Since he represented the king, she assumed Marcus had sent him. She quickly left the room to give them some privacy. After several minutes, the door opened. Ariana didn't know what Joshua had said, but Warwick soon came out in his clothes. He stopped in front of her and looked into her eyes. He had so many things to say, but he only wrapped his arms around her. She wanted to push him away because she knew he was leaving so many things unsaid, but instead, she clung to him. His voice was hoarse. "Just for a moment," he whispered. Why is there sadness in his voice? She wondered. She was perplexed. Before she realized it, he had released her and marched off. As she watched him walk away, she blurted out,
"I'll make the semi-divine enhancement pill soon. I'll wait for you."
The Crown Prince paused. He clenched his fists and fought the impulse to look back at her. She saw his shoulders droop, and then he walked outside. She felt awful and her heart ached. She wondered what had happened and looked at Joshua for an answer. The steward gave her an apologetic look and quickly followed the prince. They mounted their horses and rode out of sight.
"Where's the prince?"
Henry asked. He had just finished interpreting a painting and wanted to show it off to Warwick, only to find that he had left.
"Is Prince Warwick okay? What's going on?"
he asked. Ariana wished she knew the answer, but the prince had left without a word.
"Men are so unreliable!"
she screamed. She threw her hands up in frustration and lumbered back to her refinement room. She wanted to finish making the pill, but she felt distracted. The pill didn't work out. In less than 2 hours, the refinement had failed, leaving Ariana exasperated. She knew deep down that she wasn't upset about the pill. All sorts of ideas raced through her mind about why Warwick had been summoned.
Has there been a revolt? No, that can't be. King Marcus is a popular ruler. Maybe there was an assassination attempt on him. If that's the case, they should have brought me along. Could the king or Lady Judith be dead?
She wondered. She sat on her bed with her arms around her knees and didn't sleep at all that night. She couldn't think of anything that would make Warwick have that reaction. If she didn't get an answer, she would drive herself crazy. At the first sign of light, Ariana headed to Grace Mansion to find out if Jake knew anything, but he wasn't there. Nora had been up all night too, and there were dark circles under her eyes. When she saw Ariana, she immediately knew why she was there. "Jake left last night," she told her. Ariana grimaced. She was so confused.
"Where did he go?"
she asked. Nora gave her a long look before rubbing her head and sighing. "Let the men do their thing," she said. It was obvious that she had tried to talk Jake out of leaving, but failed. Ariana was even more anxious when she heard Nora's melancholy tone. It sounded like the kingdom was in danger, and the men were being sent out to defend the nation.
"Please tell me. I want to know what's happening,"
Ariana said. She sat down in front of Nora, looking nervous. She was usually even-keeled, so when Nora noticed how concerned she was, she admitted what was going on. "There's a crisis at Shepherd's Village," she explained. Ariana asked,
"Isn't my godfather stationed there?"
Nora nodded. "Yes, he is a great general in our kingdom and stationed at Shepherd's Village next to the Blue Sky Kingdom. They're on the move," she said.
"Blue Sky Kingdom has always been trying to plot against us. Why is there a crisis now?"
Ariana asked. Nora shook her head. "I don't know the exact situation. I heard that their crown prince made some great achievements and is leading the invasion himself," she added. Nora didn't know much and was telling her everything she knew, but Ariana was still confused. She had to find someone who could explain it all to her. She figured that since Jake wasn't there, Pete had probably left too. She went to Warwick's residence just in case he had already returned, but even Toby was gone. Maria told her that they had left the night before. Ariana then visited B, who had deteriorated further. There wasn't much time left. She had to find the immortal spirit fruit. If anything happened to B, Ariana would spend the rest of her days feeling a tremendous amount of guilt. She took a deep breath and went straight to King Marcus. He wasn't in the main hall. After searching the palace, she finally found him in his study. News from the Blue Sky Kingdom was known only to the kingdom's high-ranking officials. It was kept from the common people to avoid panic. Marcus and his officials had discussed it at length, but did not conclude. In the end, he had to let the officials talk among themselves while he retreated to another room to clear his head. He was lost in thought when she greeted him.
"Your Majesty,"
Ariana said. She bowed. Marcus was surprised to see her. "Oh, hello, Ariana. I didn't know you were here," he mumbled. His sad eyes brightened a little when he saw her, because he thought of her as family. When she saw Marcus's pale face, she asked in concern,
"Your Majesty, did you not sleep last night?"
He shook his head and sat down on a bench. He patted the spot next to him, indicating she should join him. It was a sign of respect that he had asked her to sit beside him. As soon as she sat down, Marcus asked, "You want information on Warwick, don't you?" She didn't know how to answer the question, so she shrugged. Marcus wasn't in the mood to tease her. Marcus said solemnly, "The situation is serious at the moment, and I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while before seeing him again," he said. Ariana nodded sadly and asked,
"But where is he?"
Her cultivation level wasn't high enough to fight in a war between the two kingdoms, but she thought perhaps her knowledge of medicine and formations could help. She was hopeful she could convince the king to allow her to join Warwick wherever he was. Instead of answering her question, though, he launched into a broader story. "The Blue Sky Kingdom is only a tenth of ours in size. Do you know how they're able to keep breaching our border, and why they were even able to invade us several years ago?" he asked.
"Is it because they're better at things like medicine, formations, and inscriptions?"
she guessed. He pursed his lips and asked, "Do you know why?" She shook her head. Marcus said, "It's because they have a very powerful patron." She looked very worried. She had never seen the king so deflated. "There are only a few kingdoms and nations on this continent, but there's another continent far away to the east with an even more powerful kingdom," he explained. Ariana sounded surprised when she replied,
"I've never heard that before."
"That's because you weren't qualified to hear about it," he said. She fell silent as he continued. "That kingdom is very far from us. It can take months to travel there by ship, so we seldom have to deal with them. There's no need to be scared of them, but they've recently given Blue Sky Kingdom a lot of support. Government officials from the Blue Sky Kingdom obtain most of their technology from that powerful kingdom," he muttered. He seemed reluctant to mention the kingdom's name. "Enough about that country, though. Let's talk about the Blue Sky Kingdom," he suggested. Ariana breathed in deeply, bracing for the bad news. He said, "Apart from advanced technologies such as formations and inscriptions, what else do you think is Blue Sky Kingdom's advantage?" She recalled the books Warwick had forced her to read, and her eyes lit up.
"The blood tax system?"
she inquired. Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's correct." The blood tax system was simple but cruel. Every 5 years, the Blue Sky Kingdom government would choose children between the ages of 5 and 7 from the families of merchants, craftsmen, and farmers. The smartest child would be chosen from every 50 households. The chosen children would become the king's guards, and they were brought up in a military camp, trained by officers and stewards. They weren't allowed to marry during that period. Apart from eating and sleeping, they spent all their time studying and training. The weakest of them would be eliminated regularly, and the survivors would become capable and knowledgeable guards. Since they were all from common families, they weren't connected to any forces and were loyal to the king. As a result, all the military officers and government officials came from those guards. Ariana recalled the story and said,
The guards aren't allowed to leave the service before they're 40 years old. They can marry and have children after that, but their children aren't allowed to join the guards.
The king nodded and said, That's why the Blue Sky Kingdom has been able to prosper for so many years. Who wouldn't want a team of guards like that? Without families of their own, all the guards were loyal only to the king. Marcus envied them for that, but he understood how painful the process was for the Blue Sky common citizens, so he was conflicted about introducing a similar process in his kingdom. Ariana shook her head at the idea.
I know you wouldn't do that, she said.
Marcus stared at her. How do you know that? He asked.
Because you're a merciful ruler, she replied.
The king sighed. Although the system creates child soldiers, they devote all their energy to serving their king. Perhaps one day I'll adopt the blood tax system, and our kingdom will be invincible, he exclaimed, daydreaming about the control he would have. Ariana chuckled.
You're wiser than the Blue Sky government, so you won't do the same. The blood tax system has made the Blue Sky Kingdom powerful, but it's also a time bomb waiting to explode, she explained.
Marcus looked at her. Why do you say that? He asked.
Because of human nature. All men are selfish. Once they have their own families, they'll want different things, and the relationships will become more complicated. The key lies in the rule which forbids the guards' children from joining the ranks, she began. She saw that he was listening intently and was proud of herself for garnering the king's respect and attention. She continued, If a former guard has worked hard to become a chancellor, but his child can't join the force, that means that the family legacy won't live on. That child can't hold a job in the military or government, so there's no way of maintaining any level of prosperity. The influential people will try their best to get rid of that rule. Something's bound to happen. I imagine the Blue Sky Kingdom is on the verge of collapse. Even if they don't experience a revolt, we can create some problems for them.
Marcus looked at her in amazement. The Crown Prince said the same thing right here when he was 8 years old. You and he are the only two people who have deduced that. You're both brilliant kids, Marcus shouted. He couldn't contain his excitement. Can you imagine how smart your children will be? Ariana started.
Your Majesty.
Marcus knew she felt shy, so he shook his head and interrupted her. My apologies. I got carried away, he said. Toby and I have worked so hard to create a great opportunity for Warwick, but he still hasn't fully won Ariana's heart, he thought. Marcus took a deep breath and went on talking about politics with his future daughter-in-law. The first king of the Blue Sky Kingdom was a wise man, but he faltered. Since he started the blood tax system, and it seemed successful, he also created a corresponding succession system. Do you know how it works? He asked her. The books Ariana had read didn't cover the succession system, so she shook her head and looked at Marcus in bewilderment. Don't get impatient, because it's closely related to the incident Warwick went to solve this time, he revealed. He saw the girl perk up and urge him with her eyes to continue talking. He couldn't believe what he saw. Has my plan worked? Does she truly love him? He wondered. He pushed away his anticipation for the moment and continued to explain what was happening. The blood tax system isn't as ruthless because it at least gives individual commoners a way to climb up the social ladder. The succession system is a different story, he said. The look on Marcus's face became serious, which made Ariana very uncomfortable. Their succession system requires parricide. Do you know what it is? He asked. She shook her head, but she had a feeling that it involved something merciless. Marcus said solemnly, when one of the princes takes the throne, he is required to kill all his brothers. It's written in their law. Ariana took a deep breath and cringed at the thought. He continued, their kings don't have queens or wives. They only have female slaves. All the princes are born from these slaves and treated as equals. They're brought up in a strict environment, and the most powerful prince takes the throne. She took another deep breath and shuddered, mulling over the idea of legal parricide. The king asked her another question. Do you think that process creates more powerful princes? She nodded reluctantly. Yes, of course it does. They'll have a high chance of producing geniuses, she replied. All the Blue Sky Kings have been their strongest princes. It doesn't matter that they weren't born from a queen, Marcus explained. Ariana sighed. That's why the Blue Sky Kingdom can constantly invade our border, even though it's only a tenth of our size, she replied. Yes, their people are very united, he mumbled. Ariana realized that the Blue Sky Kingdom was frighteningly powerful because they were cruel enough to follow such barbaric rituals. Your Majesty, why did you say that this has something to do with His Royal Highness? She asked eagerly. Just like we have Warwick, the Blue Sky Kingdom also has a genius. He's been made the Crown Prince in advance, and his name is Night Owl, he told her. Night Owl, as in the bird? She wondered. She didn't understand why people would consider the name intimidating. Normally, she would have considered the title a joke. However, she still took it seriously since it concerned Warwick. What about Night Owl? She asked. Marcus didn't reply. Instead, he gave her a stack of files to read. Ariana settled in a chair and began to read the information on Night Owl. He was a very powerful enemy who spent almost all his time on cultivation. He was born to be a powerful fighter and mastered 3 elements. He also became a spiritual king before he was 13. She paused and digested the feeling of inferiority that arose because she had only recently reached that milestone. She sighed and continued reading. At 16, Night Owl had reached the spiritual overlord stage, which was the level directly above the spiritual king. She knew that very few people in their kingdom had reached that stage. Master Madden and General Nova Chrono, whom Ariana had met during the competition, were spiritual overlords. She read the next line out loud.
At 20, he became a spiritual saint.
Her eyes widened, and she looked up at Marcus for an explanation. She had never heard of that stage before, so she wasn't familiar with it. Marcus clarified. Stuart Monroe, the man Warwick defeated the other day, is a spiritual saint. She was shocked that the prince was able to overthrow him, until the king added, Warwick is a spiritual saint as well. Most of the elders in the major families are spiritual saints too, Marcus added.
His Royal Highness isn't even 20 yet, and he's more talented than even Night Owl,
said Ariana. But he's injured, Marcus said gravely. I don't know how severely he was wounded in that battle against Stuart.
He got injured quite badly, I'm afraid, she told him. He's recovered a little in the past few days, but not enough.
A little? Shouted Marcus, almost jumping to his feet. He told me he was almost fully recovered.
What's so special about Night Owl anyway? Why does the Crown Prince have to go at all?
She asked anxiously. She was still feeling overwhelmed with guilt about the injuries Warwick had sustained when he had fought Stuart for her. Marcus was equally anxious. Only Warwick is strong enough to suppress Night Owl's attack. When Ariana looked at him quizzically, he continued his explanation. The battle is led by Night Owl himself, he said. He's been attacking our strongholds as easily as if no one was there to guard them at all. He stood up and started pacing. The principals of the Sphinx Academy and the Military Academy are both there to help, but the Blue Sky Kingdom also sent 2 spiritual saints to match the challenge, he said. Warwick's Sword of Caden is the only thing that can withstand Night Owl's fierce sun, which is why he was sent to the Peace Grassland so urgently. If our army can't stop this wave of attack, Shepherd's Village will be invaded, and the enemy will arrive in Mystic Valley within 3 days.
Why did this happen right after Prince Warwick and Stuart Monroe's battle? Thought Ariana in frustration. Does the Blue Sky Kingdom know about His Royal Highness's injury? She asked the king.
He didn't answer. He was too lost in thought to hear her.
If they do know, how did they get that information? She asked, only this time more loudly. Who else knew Stuart had injured His Royal Highness?
I'll look into it right away, he replied, glad to be able to do something.
Prince Warwick's injury is the most crucial part of this battle, she continued. How many days do you think it will last?
Battles between 2 capable cultivators like them can take more than a while, he said.
Could it last as much as 10 days? She asked.
It's possible, he said.
In that case, I know what to do, she said. I'll get on it right away.
With that, she turned to leave. Where are you going? Marcus asked.
The semi-divine enhancement pill,
was all Ariana said as she walked back to him and extended an open palm.
I need the token to the palace's medicine storage room. I need access to everything to make one.
Without hesitating, he gave her a royal seal and watched her dash off as fast as her legs could carry her. It wasn't until after she had left that he spoke again. What did she say? He asked Joshua. The semi-divine enhancement pill? Joshua nodded. Is she going to make it herself? He asked. I think that's what she meant, said Joshua, just as surprised as the king. Has she lost her mind? Said Marcus. She'll need at least another 30 years of training before she can do that. I want her to succeed more than anything else,
King Marcus told Joshua.
But how could Warwick have lied to me? If I knew he'd only recovered half of his strength, I would have never let him go.
Joshua was touched. His Royal Highness might seem defiant at times, but he still went on to the battlefield at such a critical time despite his injury. He's the pride of our kingdom, he said proudly.
I just hope he doesn't give his life for the Mystic Kingdom, said Marcus quietly.
The first thing Ariana did after leaving Marcus found Dr. Chandler Blackmore. She showed him the token and had him prepare all the ingredients she needed for her task. While she waited, she jumped onto her horse and went to the Wooting Temple. She needed to see Lachlan before she started. Prince Warwick was only partially recovered. If Night Owl could rise above all the other capable princes, he must be extremely powerful. She also guessed that he must have been well prepared before he even started the battle. He obviously considered himself Warwick's equal.
Does Warwick know he's walking into a death trap?
She asked herself as she rode to the temple.
He's risking his life.
As she approached the temple gates, another wave of guilt overwhelmed her. Deep down, she knew she was the cause of his injuries. She also knew that the war had to be stopped before the entire kingdom was dragged into it, and Lachlan was the only person she knew who was capable of doing that. As she rode, she saw boys and girls playing outside their homes. The streets were lined with stalls, their owners busily selling their wares. But watching common people enjoy their peaceful lives worried her. She knew that if she didn't act, the war could destroy all of that. As far as she was concerned, all the fighting should be confined to the peace grassland. No one should shed blood beyond that place. She raised her whip and urged her horse to run faster. Ariana rushed inside the Wooting Temple as fast as her legs could carry her. As she ran through the bamboo grove to find Lachlan's room, she realized she was lost. A formation had thrown her off course, something that rarely happens to her. She puzzled for a long time before she had to admit defeat. Lachlan's formation skill was as unmatched as his cultivation achievements. Lachlan had been following her movements. It was only when he was sure she had acknowledged he was much more powerful than her did he send little Albert out to help. Albert found her standing pitifully in a corner of the grove.
Lachlan doesn't want to get involved,
said little Albert quietly, a guilty look on his face.
He says he can't leave the Mystic Valley.
By that time, Ariana had guessed as much. If he could have left, he would have agreed to help her much earlier. After all, Prince Warwick was one of his favorite young cultivators.
Master asked me to give this to you,
continued little Albert when he realized she wasn't going to answer. He held out his hands. In them was a long, narrow box. It looked very unremarkable. The box may have looked like nothing, but it gave off a spiritual light that filled the air so brightly that little Phoenix, who had been cultivating in Ariana's mind space, suddenly woke up. "A phoenix pen!" he cried out. "Open the box! Inside is a phoenix pen!" Ariana couldn't understand why he was so excited. "It used to be, it's a great pen, so just take it," he said, too overawed to speak clearly.
Does it have anything to do with my beautiful master?
She asked. He didn't answer straight away,
reluctant to tell her too much.
"You just need to know it's a great pen,"
he said eventually.
"The pen you normally use to write inscriptions is fine, but it's not good enough for the inscriptions you're truly capable of writing. The Phoenix pen is in a different league."
Little Phoenix had been cultivating in Ariana's space and wasn't aware of what was happening in the outside world. After asking Ariana a few questions, his eyes lit up.
"Isn't that great? You wanted to go to the Peace Grassland," he added. "But the Mystic Kingdom army has much poorer equipment than the Blue Sky Kingdom. Do you know why?" "Because there are inscriptions written on their weapons, which makes them stronger,"
he said before she could answer.
"Will this pen make my inscriptions more powerful?"
she asked.
"Could I use it to write inscriptions onto our weapons?" "Yes," he replied. "Before, you had to carve the words into the weapons, but with this, you won't need to do that anymore. This pen is so much smoother than an ordinary carving knife."
Ariana was amazed. Lachlan had given her a wonderful gift, but she still felt sorry that he couldn't go to the Peace Grassland.
"I guess we're on our own,"
she said.
"I guess I'll need to hurry up and make that semi-divine enhancement pill."
The facilities in the Royal Palace Pharmacy were better than anything she had at home, and she was optimistic she could easily make the pill. She entered the refinement room and cleared her mind. She needed to focus purely on making the pill, but she was worried about the consequences if she failed. Any slight distraction could ruin her plan. 3 days later, she scratched her head in frustration. All she had managed to produce was a pile of powder. She cleared her mind and started the process again. She knew her success rate would be much higher if she were a semi-divine refinement master, but she hadn't reached that level yet. 3 more days had passed, and she still hadn't progressed. She smacked her head in frustration. It had been 6 days. Was Prince Warwick still alive? She knew worrying about him wasn't going to help. She needed to focus. But before she could, an idea occurred to her. Maybe things would change if she prayed to her beautiful master. She decided to enter her own mind space. There, lying on a bed of ice, was her godlike, beautiful master, and he was asleep. Every time she saw him, her knees went weak.
"Master, please help me,"
she said out loud.
"Let me become a semi-divine refinement master so that I can make a semi-divine enhancement pill. I've never asked you for anything before. Please help me."
With that, she bowed and left him in peace. What she hadn't noticed was her beautiful master's hand. His finger had twitched a little. Ariana went back to the refinement room. She felt much calmer than she had before.
Perhaps my prayer worked after all,
she thought as she carefully put more ingredients into the furnace. Ariana got very little sleep over the following few days. By the 10th day, she was exhausted, but her eyes were surprisingly bright as she finally reached the critical moment. All the dregs had been filtered, and she started to condense the liquid into a pill. Marcus was outside, pacing up and down like an expectant father outside a delivery room. Dr. Blackmore and Joshua paced with him. All their eyes were on the door of the refinement room. "It's been 10 days. Are you sure she's still working on the pill?
Asked the king. He seemed almost as tired as Ariana was. He had heard that things weren't going too well with Prince Warwick out at the Peace Grassland.
I'm sure she is,
said Dr. Blackmore deferentially.
However, she's failed twice, and this is her third attempt,
said Marcus.
She hasn't slept much, has she?
No, she hasn't, agreed the doctor.
It won't do,
said the king, panic in his voice.
She'll collapse. Maybe she's passed out already. Should we open the door?
No, said Dr. Blackmore.
If we do that, we might spoil all her hard work, and His Royal Highness's injury won't get healed. We need to give him the best chance we can against the Night Owl.
Yes, agreed Marcus, his voice quiet.
Your Majesty, I can sense heat in the room,
said Dr. Blackmore.
So the furnace must still be working. Sometimes it's strong and sometimes it's weak, which means somebody is at least controlling the fire. What strength is it now?
Asked Marcus, desperate for any sort of news.
The heat has started to fade,
said Dr. Blackmore.
She's probably at the critical stage of condensing the pill. If we force the door open, all her efforts will go to waste.
Your Majesty, we only need to wait for a moment longer, said Joshua. The king didn't answer. He seemed torn.
Do you think Ariana can succeed?
He asked after what seemed an eternity to the three men. Dr. Blackmore sighed.
It's almost impossible,
he said sadly.
Maybe there's a little hope,
suggested Joshua.
I don't think there's any hope,
said Marcus. The two other men looked at him. He smiled bitterly.
Have you forgotten about how she defeated the military academy? Her level was revealed to us then, and now she's a level 2 spiritual king.
Joshua and Chandler looked at him, unsure where his story was going.
She only recovered her cultivation ability a year ago and had to start from the beginning as a level 1 spiritual master. In a year, she became a spiritual king,
he explained.
Do you realize how many levels she has risen during this time? Spiritual master, spiritual grandmaster, spiritual elder, spiritual lord, and spiritual king. It would take other people decades to achieve that, and yet she did it in a year. That shows how hard she has worked. The problem is, a person only has limited energy,
Marcus added. He sighed.
Since she was working so hard on her cultivation, she won't have spent so much time on other aspects,
said Dr. Blackmore, beginning to understand what the king was saying.
It will be extremely difficult for her to rise higher.
But not impossible, said Joshua.
Let's not ask for too much, said Dr. Blackmore. We shouldn't have such unrealistic expectations.
On the other side of the door, Ariana was concentrating on the pill that had almost taken shape. She was almost there when she heard a hissing sound. The spherical pill began to collapse. According to the book her beautiful master had left her, it should have been as smooth and as white as a boiled egg, but it had started to turn black. Something was wrong. As she stared at the pile of black powder despondently, she suddenly remembered what was written in the book her beautiful master had left her.
Quick, use your divine phoenix blood,
said little Phoenix to her telepathically. He had remembered too. She was so tired that it took a moment for her to register what he had said.
Divine phoenix blood?
She thought.
Of course.
She took out a dagger and was about to cut her wrist when the bird interrupted her again.
The blood from your wrist won't work. It has to be straight from your heart, he shouted. You only need a drop.
Thank you, she said before using just the tip of the dagger, which she very gently cut into her chest. A drop of golden blood flew out and landed on the collapsing pill. Almost as soon as the blood landed on the pill, it started to recover. As she watched, it began to take shape. She let out a sigh of relief. She hadn't slept for 10 days and had spent the entire time staring at the furnace. The concentration alone had exhausted her, and that was without considering the amount of energy she had spent weighing and measuring each of the ingredients as precisely as the recipe had demanded. It was a near impossible task, but she had done it. Her eyes were bloodshot red, but as she looked at the pill glistening in the light, they were frighteningly bright. Ariana could sense the knowledge and experience of a semi-divine refinement master flowing into her head. She had made a semi-divine enhancement pill, despite being only a supreme-level refinement master. With this precious experience, she hoped it wouldn't be very difficult for her to rise to the next level. However, worrying about progressing was a job for another day. She had many more important things to do. She took out a jade box and carefully put the white pill inside. She then opened the door as fast as she could. King Marcus was just about to give up when he heard the door open. He had been about to order Joshua to break the door down. As Ariana emerged, her eyes bloodshot and swollen, he figured she must have failed. "Please don't blame yourself. You've done your best," he said, trying to comfort her. But before he could say anything else, she opened the box for him. Inside was a small white pill. Its color and smell were exactly like that of a real semi-divine enhancement pill. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. He was so surprised he rubbed his eyes, convinced they were deceiving him. "It's a semi-divine enhancement pill," he said reverentially.
How's Prince Warwick doing? Do you have any news?
She asked the king. "They're still fighting in the Peace Grassland, and things aren't looking good," he said gravely.
Then I need to get there right now,
she said. "Camden Madden is gathering Sphinx Academy students as we speak," he said. "He intends to lead them to the Peace Grassland as soon as the portal opens. If you go with him, it'll take you less than a half hour to get there." He suddenly started talking faster. "Even I can't open that portal whenever I want. You have to follow Master Madden, otherwise you won't get through it. The portal will be open in less than 15 minutes. But Ariana had gone. She wasn't going to miss that window of opportunity, not even if a king was talking to her. She was out of sight almost before he had finished his sentence. Dr. Blackmore only realized what had happened after she had left. "A semi-divine enhancement pill," he said wistfully. "If only I could have taken a look at it." Marcus and Joshua looked at each other. They had never seen one before either. "Does that mean she's a semi-divine refinement master now?" asked Joshua. "The Mystic Kingdom has a semi-divine refinement master," said Dr. Blackmore in awe. "Only the Blue Sky Kingdom has had masters of that level before, but we have one of our own now." That was indeed good news. It could only strengthen the kingdom. For the past 13 years, The king of the Blue Sky Kingdom had regularly ridiculed King Marcus, saying that the Mystic Kingdom wasn't capable of producing any semi-divine refinement masters. "We finally have one of our own," said Marcus, relief washing over him. Ariana was about to make him proud. However, his elation was short-lived. He still didn't know if his son was even alive. He would only know after Ariana had completed her rescue mission. Ariana ran toward the Sphinx Academy as fast as she could. The gate of the academy only opened once a month, but she wasn't going to let that rule stop her, no matter how many teachers were guarding it. Thankfully, only one teacher was there to hamper her progress. As she ran toward him, the teacher cringed. He remembered the last time he had met her. She and Madeline Monroe had wanted to pass through the gate, and he had welcomed Madeline and ignored Ariana. He remembered clearly what had happened after that. Ariana had single-handedly defeated the War Academy. Convinced she was going to laugh at him, he took a deep breath. He still had to do his job, regardless of who was approaching him. But as he was trying to figure out what to say, Ariana showed him King Marcus's royal seal. "Open the gate now," she ordered him. All the things the teacher had wanted to say to her vanished from his head. Meekly, he opened the gate and watched her rush by. It was almost as if she didn't even recognize him. An expression sprang into his mind as he watched her run. His grandmother often used to remind him that the person you ignore today may ignore him one day. He realized his grandmother was right. The rising star of the Sphinx Academy had done just that, and he knew that he had deserved it. Time was of the essence. Ariana couldn't waste a second listening to an apology. She had guessed the teacher wanted to make amends, but she knew the portal wouldn't wait just so that she could be polite. He could wait for another day, she figured, as she reached the academy door. She decided to head straight to the principal's office, but Mr. Yates wasn't there. Nor was Axel Leone and his team.
Have they left already?
She asked herself, trying not to let panic engulf her. According to King Marcus, not even he could activate the portal at will, so she had to find the others before she could proceed. She had never felt so nervous before. Just then, she heard a voice from her armband. It was Axel. She jumped violently at the unexpected voice. "Ariana, we're going to the Peace Grassland, and I don't know if I'll come back alive," he said. "If not, these will be my last words to you. I wish you and His Royal Highness all the happiness in the world." She had forgotten about her armband.
"Axel, where are you?"
she asked excitedly. "I'm just about to step into the portal," he replied. "Where are you?" Ariana's heart leaped. She just might be in time after all.
"Don't you dare go through that portal until I arrive!"
she shouted fiercely. "You'll need to be quick," he replied. "If you don't get here soon, we'll miss you." Just then, she heard Master Madden's voice through Axel's armband. "Go inside now," he barked. The portal had opened. To keep it open consumed a lot of spiritual essences. They needed to pass through it as quickly as possible so that they could close it after them again. Axel looked at Master Madden, his eyes desperate. "Ariana's here to see us off. Can we wait for her? Please," he pleaded. The elder's spiritual essence was pouring out at a rate not even he had anticipated, so he shook his head. "You'll see each other again. Go!" he said, his voice strained from all the effort he was putting into keeping the portal open. Because of the unusual activity in the Peace Grassland, the Sphinx Academy was sending more students there than normal. Most of the Class A students were already there, but it wasn't enough. They were sending in the Dynasty team now. Everybody was there except for Ariana and Roman. He had already been asked to leave. "But Axel tried to say, but the look on Master Madden's face made him stop. "If you don't go in now, you won't get in at all." Axel sighed. It seemed he wouldn't see Ariana after all. He just hoped he could come back alive. He passed through the portal with a heavy heart. Ariana was still 100 yards away when she saw the portal starting to close. In desperation, she gritted her teeth and ran faster, determined not to miss her only opportunity. Just then, Little Phoenix jumped into her mind. "Now!" he shouted, glad to be of use at such a crucial moment. With his one word came a rush of energy that pushed her forward at a speed she had never experienced before. It squeezed her through the portal just as it closed. Had she been even a millisecond slower, she would have missed it. "Thank you," she said to Little Phoenix as she landed in a heap on the other side, crushing Axel in the process. "What?" he shouted as she crashed into him, almost knocking him down. As he turned around and saw who it was, his face lit up. "How did you get in?" he asked. He grabbed her hand and pulled her up. Everyone else turned around to see what had happened. They couldn't believe that Ariana had arrived. Even Master Madden was astonished. He glared at her. He wasn't pleased to find his group of protégés had grown. "Yes," he said coldly. "Just how did you get in?" "It's a secret," she said, panting for breath. "I'm going to the Peace Grassland with you." The elder looked at her suspiciously. As the portal had started to close, she had been nowhere to be seen. Yet somehow she had managed to squeeze through. He knew that even he couldn't move that fast, and he was a spiritual overlord. As he looked at her, he realized there was no point in pressing her for an answer. She hadn't revealed her secrets in the Secret Essence Mine. There was no way she was going to start now. "But you can't go," he said. It wasn't the answer she had been expecting to hear. "Why?" asked Ariana, not accustomed to being told she couldn't do something. "The Crown Prince gave me clear instructions when he left, forbidding you from going there," said Master Madden. It was the reason why the entire Dynasty team was going to the Peace Grassland without her. She hadn't even been informed. In the past, she would have been furious, thinking Prince Warwick was deliberately holding her back. But after learning what the prince had done for her recently, she wasn't surprised by the order he had given. The Peace Grassland was a death trap. It was an extremely dangerous place, even for the most experienced cultivators. She understood his intentions, but she knew she just had to go. She showed Master Madden the seal King Marcus had given her. "This is His Majesty's seal," she explained. "He's sending me to the Peace Grassland, and not even the Crown Prince can stop me." Master Madden tried to interrupt, but she raised her hand to stop him. "If I remember correctly, King Marcus is still the ruler of this kingdom," she said haughtily. He closed his mouth, knowing he was powerless to object. He turned around and walked off. Ariana was relieved. She had expected him to cause trouble for her, but the seal had silenced him. She hadn't expected it to be quite so useful. Axel and the other students had watched Ariana and Master Madden wordlessly. The elder was renowned for his ferocity, yet Ariana had a habit of talking to him in a way that not even some of the teachers would get away with. Instead, he had walked away. It was his way of giving her his tacit consent to join them. Axel nudged her. "Is this your first time going to the Peace Grassland?" he asked her.
Yes,
She whispered back. "I thought so," he said. "You couldn't even find the portal." The portal was made for transporting people to war. It could contain up to 100 people. Ariana found a corner to get some rest. Axel sat down opposite her and looked at her. He hadn't noticed how tired she looked. "Why are you so pale? You look like you haven't slept for days," he said gently. Too tired to explain, she closed her eyes. "Hey, don't sleep," he said. "This is your first time here. Surely you don't want to miss it." She opened one eye and looked at him. "Do you know where the grassland is?" he asked. "Do you even know where the battlefield is?" Seeing sleep wasn't going to be an option. She opened her other eye. "No," she said. "Do you know how far away it is from Shepherd's Village?" he continued. "Do you even know how many levels of cultivators there will be?" She sighed. "Why don't you tell me?" she said. But Axel had finally registered the tired look on her face. "You're right," he said. "You should sleep. Just follow me when we get there, and I'll fill you in then." "No," she said, more firmly than she had intended. Her top priority was to find Prince Warwick and get him to take the semi-divine enhancement pill. She didn't have time for anything else. "Just tell me the most important things," she added, this time a little more kindly. She knew the War Academy would provide the students with relevant information. If a student went to the school as scheduled, the teachers would have taught them all they needed to know about the Peace Grassland once they reached Class A. However, seeing as she had progressed through the academy so quickly, she had missed most of those lessons. Axel's willingness to help her might just be enough to save her life in such a dangerous place. Axel gladly started talking. He filled her in on all the essentials. He told her about fighting tactics before he filled her in on the geography of the battlefield. She hadn't known that the war was taking place 500 miles from Shepherd's Village, nor did she know that both sides had built fortresses 30 miles from their borders. The Mystic Kingdom and Blue Sky Kingdom fortresses were only 60 miles apart. It wasn't what she had imagined at all. She drank in everything he told her voraciously. She learned that there had been no large-scale battles and that the skirmishes were confined to local areas. She was glad to hear that only cultivators had been involved. "Most of our cultivators come from the Military Academy and the Sphinx Academy," he reminded her. Not everybody in the kingdom was capable enough to cultivate. Only a handful was qualified to do that, and even fewer were considered talented. Of those few, only a very small percentage of them got into the Sphinx Academy or the Military Academy. It was the same situation for the Blue Sky Kingdom. As a result, the war between the cultivators involved fewer than 1,000 people. "Most Sphinx Academy students come from surrounding schools," he added, "whereas the Military Academy mainly recruits from the military service." She nodded.
Here in the Peace Grassland, General Victor Grace holds the supreme command on our side. He continued. Below him are the principals of the Sphinx Academy and the Military Academy. The three of them are at the top of the hierarchy, and they're all spiritual saints. They seldom participate in battles. They're only there to oversee our operation. If they participated, the Peace Grassland wouldn't be big enough to withstand their power.
That much she did know, but she didn't want to interrupt him.
After that are the elders, who are spiritual overlords. Master Madden is an intermediate spiritual overlord, and one of the other elders is a peak spiritual overlord. I'll tell you more about it when we have time. He added, we spiritual king students are one level below the elders. We've only been allowed to travel because we've graduated from the academy.
But I can see some spiritual lords have traveled with us,
Ariana observed.
The best spiritual lords are allowed to come with us to continue their training. He explained. They won't participate in the dangerous battles. They'll only join the main force when they become spiritual kings.
Just then, the portal opened. Everyone stepped outside, their eyes wide with excitement as they took in the scene surrounding them. Everywhere they looked, they saw endless green, punctuated with one large building. It was a fortress.
This is our fortress, and the Blue Sky Kingdom fortress is over there, said Axel. Here on such flat grassland, you can easily see things that far away.
It wasn't completely flat. She could see trees to the north, but they looked tiny in the vast expanse of grassland. But she didn't have time to consider anything else. Something happened, and it was big. Heat suddenly enveloped Ariana. She raised her eyes to the sky and saw an apocalyptic sight straight out of a nightmare. Flaming red clouds filled the firmament.
The clouds are burning,
she thought with alarm. She hadn't slept for 10 days, and she realized she might be hallucinating. She squeezed her eyelids shut to clear her vision and prayed for mental clarity. But when she opened her eyes, the sky was still on fire.
Somewhere in this hellish place, Warwick is fighting,
she thought desperately. He had valiantly lied to his father and said he had nearly recovered from the grievous wounds he had suffered on Ariana's behalf. Otherwise, King Marcus wouldn't have allowed the inheritor of his throne to go to that land where the red fire raged in the clouds. Ariana had followed the crown prince to that cultivator's battleground because she had made a magical pill that could save his life. She had to find him. She had to make him well. She wanted to run wildly through the alien terrain, screaming his name until she found him. But she knew unruly conduct of that sort would get her jailed. So instead, she marched in precise military formation with the rest of the seated team toward the fortress. When they arrived, they headed straight down the center of the 15-square-mile complex. Until she had entered its precincts, Ariana hadn't realized how enormous the fortress was.
Somebody, somewhere in this vastness, can help me find Warwick,
she thought. As they marched, she caught a glimpse of the fortress's right wing, which Sphinx Academy's students and alumni occupied. The 5-square-mile wing was filled with rows of sturdy stone houses where the combatants lived. Each fighter had their own home. She caught a glimpse of the fortress's left wing, which was the military academies. Ariana noticed that a sense of calm order pervaded throughout the fortress. General Victor Grace, who was in charge, clearly kept everything under control.
Surely the general can help me find Warwick,
she thought. She stepped out of her team's marching formation and blocked Master Madden's path. The entire team stopped dead in its tracks.
"Sir,"
she cried,
"I must see General Grace right away."
Master Madden gave her a quizzical glance. Ariana hadn't told him why King Marcus had sent her to the Peace Grassland, so he knew she probably wouldn't tell him why she needed to speak to the general. Master Madden said,
"General Grace can't see anybody who requests an audience with him. He's the supreme commander of the army. His schedule is very tight."
Before Ariana could open her mouth to reply, she heard a derisive laugh from a bystander who was loitering nearby. The bystander was none other than her enemy, Luigi Laredo, the military academy team's captain. During their recent intercollegiate competition, Luigi had disgraced himself by drinking a vial of Madeline's blood. He had been trying to make himself strong enough to vanquish Ariana, but she had won the competition anyway. Ariana wasn't about to let Luigi distract her from her urgent quest to find Warwick and give him the life-saving pill she had made.
"Sir,"
she said to Master Madden,
"do I need to remind you whose seal I'm carrying?"
Of course, the Sphinx Academy elder remembered she had King Marcus's seal in her possession. She had shown it to him in the portal when he had told her the Crown Prince had forbidden her to go to the Peace Grassland. It occurred to Master Madden that Ariana might be the king's future daughter-in-law, so General Grace might agree to see her.
"Come with me," the elder said tersely. "We'll go find the general."
Ariana gave Master Madden one of her rare smiles, and off they went in search of General Grace. As they strode along side by side, Ariana said,
"When we arrived, there was a fire in the sky. But within the precincts of this fortress, things seem so calm. I find that strange."
The elder replied,
"The silence in here is unnerving, isn't it?"
Suddenly, shouts of surprise shattered that silence. He and Ariana ran toward the shouts. Her teammates followed closely behind. When they arrived at the side of the fortress that didn't face the portal, they saw a crowd gathered on a wide plain. They sprinted over to the group, whose eyes were trained on the skies. The clouds above them were burning, just as they had been when Ariana had stepped out of the portal. Master Madden asked one of the group members about the fire in the sky. The young man replied,
"His Royal Highness and Night Owl are up there fighting. They've set the clouds on fire."
Ariana's heart stood still.
"I found him,"
she thought. She willed herself not to weep. She willed herself to listen carefully to the explanation that came pouring out of the young man's mouth.
"The Crown Prince has been up there for 10 days, battling all the while against Night Owl,"
the young man said.
"When the fight started, the clouds were white. They caught fire as the fighting continued. Now 80% of them are in flames."
Ariana's eyes scanned the clouds.
"Where is he?"
she thought frantically. Little Phoenix, who was hiding inside Ariana's mind space, suddenly spoke to her telepathically. Her magical bird had the fire element, so he could see into the flames. What he said sent a chill up Ariana's spine.
"Oh, Ariana,"
Little Phoenix said telepathically.
"His Royal Highness is covered in blood."
Ariana's heart stood still.
Warwick's up there in the burning clouds, bleeding his life away,
she thought. Anxiety and anguish assailed her.
I must find a way to get the semi-divine enhancement pill to him,
she thought. Once again, she willed herself not to weep. Suddenly, off in the distance, she saw a fighter taking a flying leap and soar into the air. As she watched, the combatant rose through the sky and disappeared into the fiery clouds.
How'd they do that?
She cried. Without waiting for an answer, she turned on her heel and started running. She had to find the place where the fighter had taken off from. She had to figure out how to fly into the clouds herself.
Ariana!
Master Madden barked.
Come back here this instant!
Ariana needed the elder to explain to her how to make the aerial ascent, so she decided to obey him.
Sir,
she said when she had returned to his side,
how do I get up there? Is there an incantation for me to recite or a special stance to catapult me into the sky?
The other people in the crowd scowled at her. One of them, who was a young woman dressed in green, interrupted Ariana's conversation with Master Madden.
You can't go up there,
the young woman said.
You'll get His Royal Highness killed.
Ariana felt a stab of anger.
Mind your own business,
she thought furiously.
Someone else just flew up there. Why can't I?
She said. The young woman dressed in green said disdainfully,
Clearly you don't know the rules and regulations.
Ariana thought.
Warwick is up there, bleeding his life away, while this woman lectures me on what I can and cannot do.
A young man decided it was his turn to interrupt Ariana's conversation with Master Madden. He stepped toward the young woman dressed in green and gave her a polite smile.
Brunhilde, please,
he said.
She's probably a new arrival who doesn't know the rules and regulations.
Then he turned to Ariana and gave her a polite smile too.
May I ask your name?
He said. Then Axel decided it was his turn to interrupt Ariana's conversation with Master Madden. He stepped between Ariana and the polite young man and said,
Please allow me to introduce Ariana Grace, a member of the seeded team. This is her first trip to the Peace Grassland. Ariana, please allow me to introduce Fabio Flemington, who has been here since he graduated last year.
Fabio said,
Just as I thought. She's a newcomer.
Axel showed his good manners by including the young woman in green in his introductions.
Brunhilde, it's a pleasure to see you again,
he said.
I'd like you to meet my talented teammate, Ariana Grace. Ariana, this is Brunhilde Borchers, who graduated 2 years ago.
Axel knew but didn't say that Fabio and Brunhilde were two of the many cultivators who sought to advance their social status by heading to the Peace Grassland right after graduation. Their career choice put them in great danger, but offered them the opportunity to gain glory in battle and earn a high military rank. Brunhilde didn't respond to Axel's courteous words. Instead, she trained her eyes on the skies and searched for Warwick among the burning clouds. She looked worried. Axel saw no need for his fellow fighters to keep harping on Ariana's ignorance of the rules and regulations that governed warfare in the Peace Grassland. So he said,
Fabio, please get us up to speed on what's going on up there in the sky.
Fabio replied,
The battle started after Night Owl demolished one of our small fortresses. He challenged the Crown Prince to a duel. He said he'd destroy an additional fortress every day that His Royal Highness delayed their fight.
Ariana thought,
That's why Warwick was in such a hurry to leave me.
Fabio continued,
Night Owl said that if the Crown Prince refused to fight him, he'd keep attacking our fortresses and provoke an all-out war. His Royal Highness was eager to prevent such a bloodbath.
Ariana thought.
But now he's up there shedding his blood. I've got to help him.
Fabio said, "The Crown Prince knows the Blue Sky Kingdom's forces have 3 highly capable cultivators, and a full-scale war would be a calamity. He got here the same day the challenge was issued and immediately started fighting." Now it was Luigi's turn to interrupt the conversation. Until he spoke, Ariana hadn't even noticed he was among the crowd with their eyes trained on the skies. "Night Owl must have had a spiritual growth spurt," Luigi said. "Until now, His Royal Highness has been superior to him." Fabio replied, "Clearly something's up. The Crown Prince should have won this battle in a matter of hours, but it's gone on for 10 days. My master says he's severely injured." Suddenly, Ariana couldn't listen in silence for a moment longer. She blurted out,
His injuries are preventing him from winning.
Brunhilde had been listening intently to the conversation while she stared at the sky. She turned to Ariana and fixed her with a freezing stare.
You ignorant little twit,
Brunhilde snarled.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
Axel gasped. Of course Ariana knows what she's talking about, he thought. She's the Crown Prince's fiancée. Brunhilde had better watch her mouth. Axel started to speak, but Fabio interrupted him. Brunhilde, please, he said. Ariana's observation might be valid. After the fight began, my master and his cohort noticed His Royal Highness had sustained severe internal injuries. They suspected he had been wounded before engaging with Night Owl. Brunhilde scowled at Fabio, but allowed him to keep talking. The masters made inquiries with the palace about the state of the Crown Prince's health and found out he had fought with Stuart Monroe. Stuart is a spiritual saint like His Royal Highness, but is ranked 3 levels above him, he said. Brunhilde's scowl deepened. Fabio continued. His Royal Highness pushed his powers to the limit to vanquish Stuart. He burned one side of Stuart's face and half his torso. His extreme exertion was the likely cause of his internal injuries. Brunhilde asked angrily, Why would His Royal Highness start a fight with a higher-ranked member of the older generation? Axel was fairly certain he knew the answer to her question, but he wasn't about to share it with her. He thought, surely Stuart's granddaughter, Miss Monroe, caused the fight. Once again, Brunhilde trained her eyes on the skies, where Warwick and Night Owl's fight continued. She exclaimed, Despite his injuries, His Royal Highness will win. Ariana still hadn't gotten Master Madden to answer her question about how to fly into the clouds. She urgently needed to get to Warwick's battle site so she could give him the life-saving pill she had made. For the second time, she demanded, Sir, how do I get up there? Once again, Brunhilde interrupted Ariana's conversation with Master Madden. Instead of answering Ariana's question, Brunhilde offered a confusing observation. The fighter who just flew up there is a spiritual overlord from the Blue Sky Kingdom. They're side 1, so they can send somebody up, she said. Ariana thought, What on earth is this woman talking about? Fabio realized Brunhilde's explanation was incomprehensibly vague. He turned his gaze to Ariana and was startled by her beauty. He had been so busy showing off his knowledge that he hadn't looked at her until that moment. Battles are staged down here on the ground, he said. They determine whether we or our enemies get to send reinforcements up to the clouds where the Crown Prince and Night Owl are fighting. Ariana listened intently. Fabio continued. Spiritual kings fight the earthbound battles, but they can't fly up to the clouds, so a spiritual overlord from their country goes up there instead. He pointed to an area by the border, which was where the fighter had soared skyward. Then he said,
"The man who just took flight over there was from the Big Sky Kingdom. That means their spiritual kings just won a battle against our spiritual kings."
Ariana felt a stab of exasperation.
Rules, rules, and more rules, she thought. I'm sick of hearing about them. I need to give Warwick that pill before he bleeds to death.
I understand now that spiritual kings can't fly to the battle site in the clouds. Are spiritual pets allowed to do so?
She said.
Fabio said, "No, they're not. And if they try to sneak up there, they'll be struck down by the war zone's top officials. Our leaders and our enemy's 3 leaders carefully monitor all activity in the skies."
Little Phoenix, who was concealed in Ariana's mind space, winced when he heard Fabio's words. In a previous incarnation, the magical bird had died in battle. He didn't wish to repeat the experience. Brunhilde felt that Fabio was paying entirely too much attention to Ariana.
"Fabio!"
she exclaimed.
"Stop talking. You're wasting your time chatting with this newcomer."
He hung his head like a scolded schoolboy and fell silent. Fabio always obeyed Brunhilde's commands. But suddenly he decided to rebel against her. He raised his eyes and gazed at Ariana. My God, she's beautiful, he thought. Then he said,
"There's something I forgot to tell you, Ariana. The participants in the Earthbound battles must be junior spiritual kings under the age of 20. They need all the fighting experience they can get."
Brunhilde was infuriated.
"Fabio," she snarled, "I told you to keep silent."
Then she hissed at Ariana.
"You think you can just waltz in here and wrap these men around your little finger, don't you?"
She raised her hand to slap Ariana. Once again, Axel gasped. You better keep your hands to yourself, he thought. Ariana's the Crown Prince's fiancée. She's the love of his life. Ariana regarded Brunhilde's upraised hand and felt another stab of anger.
Warwick's up in the clouds, bleeding his life away, she thought. How dare this woman start some petty quarrel with me?
Ariana hauled off and slugged Brunhilde, who fell unconscious to the ground. She was careful not to hit Brunhilde hard enough to kill her, which would have been easy to do now that she was a level 2 spiritual king. The ensuing uproar would have wasted the precious time Ariana needed to deliver the semi-divine enhancement pill to Warwick. For a moment, the crowd stood in shocked silence. When Fabio regained his ability to speak, he told Axel,
"The Class A students have gotten a lot more powerful since I graduated."
Axel replied,
"Ariana's a standout. Luckily for us, she joined the Dynasty team in time for our competition with the military academy. She single-handedly beat all our opponents, including Luigi."
Luigi was still standing among the crowd. He blushed at the mention of his humiliating defeat. The people around him cast pitying glances at him, which made him blush even harder. Ariana felt a fresh surge of exasperation.
I'm standing right here, she thought. They're talking about me like I'm invisible.
She turned on her heel and ran for the border. Yet again, Axel gasped. Then he turned on his heel and followed her. Only then did anyone in the crowd think to help Brunhilde. A pair of her friends raised her into a sitting position and splashed water from a canteen onto her face. Her eyes flew open.
"Where's the bitch who hit me?"
she shouted. A shocked silence descended on the crowd again.
Brunhilde should steer clear of Ariana,
nearly everybody thought. But Chrissy Cunningham, who was standing in the crowd, smiled snidely. She was Ariana's sworn enemy. She had gotten into trouble in the secret essence mine and had blamed Ariana for it. She mused,
Maybe Brunhilde can get in a few shots against Ariana before she's beaten to a pulp.
Chrissy stepped over to Brunhilde's side and helped her to her feet. Then she said,
Ariana's heading for the border.
Brunhilde cried,
That bitch!
Then she turned on her heel and ran as fast as her bruised body could go. For a long moment, everyone just stood there, and then they all followed after her. Ariana sprinted to the border. There she sought out the junior arena where a battle was underway to determine which country would be allowed to send reinforcements to Warwick and Night Owl. The junior arena was situated on the left end of a row of 3 large arenas. The junior arena was where levels 1, 2, and 3 spiritual kings fought. The intermediate arena was located on the right end of the row. Levels 4, 5, and 6 spiritual kings fought there. The advanced arena was situated in the middle of the row. Levels 7, 8, and 9 spiritual kings fought in the advanced arena. There were 3 arenas for spiritual kings, because that was the ranking of most of the cultivators stationed at the Peace Grassland. Cultivators were the sole combatants in the conflict between the Mystic Kingdom and the Blue Sky Kingdom. It wasn't a conventional war fought by huge battalions of soldiers. Instead, the 2 sides engaged in 5-on-5 arena battles to compare the strength of their respective forces. Spiritual saints didn't usually get involved in the arena battles, and neither did spiritual overlords. When Ariana found the junior arena, she slipped inside and wove her way through the crowd to the front row. 2 of Mystic Kingdom's 5 fighters had already lost their face-offs. There was a brief break in the action before it was time for the next combatants to step onto the stage. As Ariana waited, she listened to the conversations the people around her were having. The young man next to her said, "Our fighter who just lost was from the military academy." The young woman next to him replied,
Our next combatant is a former Sphinx Academy student. I hope he does better. We need to win so we can send a spiritual overlord into the clouds to help the Crown Prince.
Suddenly, the crowd gasped and trained their eyes on the skies. Fiery clouds churned over the arena, which was an open-air stadium. The clouds had dropped closer to the ground and were now just a few hundred yards overhead. There in the clouds stood Warwick, valiantly brandishing his sword at Night Owl. Ariana's heart stood still.
I found him,
she thought once again. Once again, she willed herself not to weep.
I'll get that medicine to him or die trying,
she vowed. The young man next to her shouted, "The Crown Prince's hand is bleeding!" The young woman next to him screamed,
There's a cut on his face!
The young man exclaimed, "A spiritual overlord from the Blue Sky Kingdom is trying to sneak up on him and distract him." The young woman hissed,
He's got to stay focused. Distractions are deadly.
Suddenly, storm clouds boiled up around Warwick and hid him and Night Owl from the arena audience's view. The audience groaned with dismay. In due time, the combatant who had attended Sphinx Academy and his opponent from the Blue Sky Kingdom stepped onto the arena stage and started fighting. In a matter of minutes, it became obvious the Sphinx Academy alumnus was going to lose the fight. In a corner of the arena where Ariana couldn't see him, Jake howled furiously.
I wish I were a junior spiritual king!
Pete, who was with him, just sighed. A moment later, the Sphinx Academy alumnus tumbled off the arena stage, which signaled his defeat. Wails of distress rose from his cheering section. The defeated combatant sobbed.